afternoon, and welcome to 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dorzinski. He is Dan Lucero. We are with you for the next 3 hours. We've got a ton to get to from a busy sports weekend. Not a bad weekend for the Kansas City Royals. Took 2 out of 3 from the Giants team that was red hot going into the weekend. That's cool to see. We'll talk all about that coming up here in just a few moments. Some good, some not quite as good, but definitely some real good from this weekend. So we'll get to all that here momentarily. Also this hour, we will recap the entire sports weekend with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And Matt Verderame is going to join us at the bottom of this hour, national NFL writer for Sports Illustrated. He'll stop by for our weekly chat about all things National Football League. We've actually got plenty of NFL to get to today. It's a Monday. It's draft month. You know what that means. It's Mock Draft Monday. I have a new post with a couple of mock drafts aggregated over at our website, 580wibw.com. So go check that out and then be ready top of the 4 o'clock hour as we break down some of the picks the experts, the analysts, the blog boys out there have the Chiefs making, at least in the first round. Some drafts much more than the first round in the mock side of things. So we will get to that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Also, the Chiefs made a move at wide receiver on Friday when we did not have a show. Not a huge move adding Richie James, but depth coming off the best season of his career. Another guy from the Giants. Apparently the Chiefs love Giants receivers. So I like the move a lot. We'll talk about that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Also, OBJ has got a new contract. The Chiefs apparently were never really in the mix for OBJ, given what he got paid. I cannot believe what he got paid at all. It is a lot. How about $15 million guaranteed for a dude who has not played a full season more than twice in his career that began in 2014?
It would be a lot of money for a wide receiver who wasn't on the wrong side of 30 coming off of a second major knee surgery.
I would have rather given Juju 15 than given Odell 15. And I mean, I think Juju was fairly compensated at $11 million a year from the Pats.
This is not to drag Odell Beckham Jr. Like, tip of the cap, get the bag, all of those things. Congrats on your big paycheck. Somebody's willing to give it to you, then that's what the market has determined you're worth. But yeah, that was kind of surprising. And as soon as I saw those figures, I said, I'm glad the Chiefs did not go to these lengths to acquire this player.
Yeah.
These financial lengths.
So we'll get to that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour as well. Masters in the books. We'll talk about that a little bit. Dan had a nice weekend betting on the Masters.
Your boy.
Feeling pretty good?
Yeah, your boy's feeling good. Double meat and guac next time I go to Chipotle, baby.
Hey, that's what we love to hear. We've got another Royals game coming up tonight that we'll preview. We've got some overtime coming up today. We've got What Is Wrong With You. Of course, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as I mentioned, our 580 Sports Talk headlines, all that and more coming up over the course of the next 3 hours here on 580 Sports Talk. We will also get to your texts and your YouTube comments as well. The text line number is 785-272-9429. And the comment section on YouTube is open on our channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. Go subscribe if you haven't already. It is free to do. Just click on the subscribe button. And then all of our videos, our live streams, our uploaded videos, all that will pop up right there on your home feed on YouTube. Again, our channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. Let's get right to it with the Kansas City Royals, though, Dan. Took 2 out of 3 from the San Francisco Giants this weekend. I don't care who you're playing. This Royals team, if you're going to take 2 or 3 from anybody, awesome. Great. That is a literally 2 wins, but that's a big win for this team overall.
You want to be a winning team, you got to win series.
And I think pitching-wise, I mean, the pitching has been the bright spot for this Royals team so far through the first, 10 games of the season, which is shocking to me. A couple of bad games for the bullpen. Ryan Yarbrough wasn't great yesterday.
I know, like, Paul Hoover had thought it through. This wasn't, the interim manager getting caught necessarily with his pants down. When he talked about it in the post game, he laid out his thought process. And look, I can get by. If you can explain to me, if a manager or a coach can explain to me why they did what they did, then I can at least say, okay, you didn't just forget, or leave a guy in a batter too long. Like, just on because of your own rank and competence. You had a plan, you had a process, and it didn't work out. That happens in sports sometimes.
Yep.
But I gotta believe you've got a better late inning option to protect a 1-run lead than the dude out there throwing as hard as me. Yeah. Like high school era Dan Lucero velocity from Ryan Yarbrough. And look, he's made it work. He's had a solid Major League Baseball career. But like, the late innings are for power. The late innings are for bat missing. And you've got fresh arms in the back of that bullpen that could have come in and maybe missed a bat and maybe not hung a slider to Michael Conforto in the tie ball game.
Yeah.
A 3-1 slider. Like, if Ryan Yarbrough, your stock and trade is, I'm going to throw strikes, I'm going to get ahead of hitters, I'm going to get him to swing at my pitch, don't go behind 3-1 with go-ahead run on base.
So that was one of the downsides of the weekend. And the only other negative pitching performance was Brady Singer. Not a great outing for him on Saturday, but it happens.
Still think he's behind a little bit with his preparation. I would not start sending up any kind of red flag about Brady Singer's performance until we get to the end of the month and he's still struggling. And it's like, not like he was terrible on Saturday. He gave up, I think it was 5 runs, 8 hits, 6 innings, but 79 pitches in 6 innings, 59 strikes. Like, he was efficient, maybe a little too good in the zone. And that's the kind of thing you can work on. But I would much rather have an outing where that happens than an outing where you walk 5 guys and you throw 79 pitches in 3 2/3 innings and you're giving up the same amount of runs. So something to build on there. I still think his season prep is probably a step or 2 behind where it would have been in a non-World Baseball Classic year. He'll be fine. I'm not worried about Brady Singer.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, his ERA is just barely a tick below the league average through his first 2 starts, giving up 1.18 whip. That's not that bad. Same hits per 9 as he had all season last year. The number he's on right now. He's only given up 1 home run through 11 innings. I'm not overly concerned. Just, in a weekend that had a bunch of pretty good pitching performances, that unfortunately was not one of them. But hey, you get yesterday, Brad Keller, you give up 1 run.
That was Friday.
I'm sorry. 1 run, 6 base runners in 5 2/3 from Keller. Yeah, you'll take that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
It was Chris Bubich yesterday, who's apparently the best pitcher in baseball.
So I didn't get to watch a ton of Bubich's first outing. So when I was relaying some of the numbers, some of the research, some of the underlying stuff behind his first outing, I didn't watch a lot of that particular game. I watched first inning or 2 of that one. I watched a lot more of his start yesterday. That is a completely different pitcher. That is a completely different guy up on the mound right now. And it's not just the new pitch, and it's not just the uptick in fastball velocity. It's all of those things. Now, when we have brought up Chris Bubich in the past on this radio program, inevitably we will hear from a listener. Maybe it's the YouTube comments. A lot more often it's been the text line. And your texts, by the way, are welcome. 785-272-9429.
Yeah, celebrate while the getting's good with the Royals.
We will hear inevitably, when we have talked in the past about Chris Bubich, from people who say he doesn't look very confident, or it doesn't look like his head's right, or he looks like he's just a bit of a head case on the mound, is a term that I can recall flashing across the text line. And I'm not relaying this to tell our texters or our commenters that they were incorrect in that assessment. Rather, the opposite. If you can see it, then I'm sure it's fairly obvious to anybody watching him, and probably acutely felt most acutely by Chris Bubich himself. It's hard to be confident when you don't have success. It's hard to have success when what has turned out to be your best pitch so far this year was a pitch that your past pitching coach was telling you not to throw, which is 100% a true thing that happened. Cal Eldred told Chris Bubich not to throw his slider, and now Chris Bubich is throwing his slider, and it's a wipeout pitch. Like, man, Cal Eldred couldn't have been doing a worse job if he tried to do a bad job. And sometimes some of the stories you hear make you wonder if he actually was. Like, if he were a sleeper agent from somebody with an interest in tanking the entire Kansas City Royals franchise. But no, Chris Bubich, entirely different guy. The extension on the mound is different. That's where the velocity is coming from. That's where the movement on the pitches is coming from. It is time to be intrigued. Like, through 2 starts in his season, I was looking at, and again, we don't want to make your eyes roll in the back of your head with stats, feeding you numbers that we even can't fully explain, right? But
that you can go get yourself on Baseball Reference.
Baseball Reference or Fangraphs.
Yeah.
But I was looking at the fielding independent numbers for Chris Bubich through 2 starts. And again, super small sample size. I know it's just 2 starts. But expected fielding independent pitching, like right now, number 1 in baseball in that, Jacob deGrom. Is he a good pitcher?
Yes.
So there's a little predictive value in this particular stat. Chris Bubich is a top 15 pitcher in baseball through the first 10 days in expected fielding independent pitching. The guys around him, the guys who bracket him, Julio Urias, all-star, Dylan Cease, all-star. Like, that's who he's pitching like through 2 starts. That's the neighborhood he lives in right now, or has lived in these first two starts. So this isn't just a sample size where he has benefited from some spectacular defense or some good batted ball luck. He's making guys miss. He's not walking people. He's keeping people in the ballpark. He's doing all the things good pitchers do, and with a renewed repertoire of pitches that now includes what might actually be his best pitch. So I understand if you've had your heart broken before and you are slow to buy tickets to the Chris Bubic bandwagon, I totally understand where your thought process is, but this is a different guy. If you're turning on the TV or turning on the radio to catch a Royals game and you hear that Chris Bubic is on the mound, I think you can feel at the bare minimum not as bad about it as you maybe used to feel. And I get it, because last year, if I heard Chris Bubic was starting, I wasn't watching. I totally get where you're coming from. So I can only imagine what that experience is like for you if you cared about the outcome of the game. But now, if you care about the outcome and you want to see the Royals win, Chris Bubic looks like a pitcher who's going to give him a shot to win more often than not when he's on the mound. That is an exciting development. That is proof of concept for this new regime. Mm-hmm. And he's the lodestar right now. He's the one that I think really stands out as the most encouraging development of the first 10 games of this season.
Yeah, it hit the nail on the head. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how you couldn't at least be encouraged in a year where we thought, okay, pitching's going to be pretty awful. To have someone like Bubic come out and say, hey, I'm actually pitching pretty well right now. I don't know how you couldn't get at least somewhat excited by that. And again, I said it jokingly about texting with your thoughts a moment ago, but it's true. Don't know that this is going to keep lasting. Don't know that once we have a larger sample size, the numbers are going to look quite this good. So enjoy it and watch the games if you can, while you can, and enjoy the fact that Bubic and Keller and the rest of this pitching staff are pitching really well. And we should talk about the bullpen too, because in 10 games so far, 2 duds? 3, maybe 3 now, with Yarbrough really struggling in the loss yesterday. But overall, the bullpen's been very solid, very solid. And the most important piece of the bullpen this year is not probably Scott Barlow, even though he's probably the best arm the Royals have. It's not Jose Cuas, who might throw 95 times this year. The most important piece of this bullpen is Aroldis Chapman, because Aroldis Chapman, if he plays well, is going to fetch a decent prospect, or maybe even a major league player or soon to be major league player come July 31st.
He looks like his old self. He looks like the all-star, the vintage version of Aroldis Chapman, up there throwing 102, 103. He's got that in the quiver. He's dominant because the slider's still there. The split is still there. All of the stuff that has made him an all-star closer, one of the most feared relief pitchers in the game for his entire career. That was all of that was still there, except 2 things were starting to fade on him, it seemed: the velocity and the command. And so far, Chapman's got 1 walk in 4 innings, 8 strikeouts, and he's throwing 102, 103 with regularity again. That's one of the best relief pitchers in baseball. And that is, again, proof of concept. Somebody's doing something right. Somebody's coaching these guys the right way, or giving these guys the right advice to get this out of them. And it's not just Chapman. Scott Barlow's got a 0 ERA as well in his first 3 outings of the season. Taylor Clark showed me something I frankly did not think he had in him in that Saturday game, where he loaded up the bases in a tie game with nobody out and then proceeded to strike out the side. Clark was always the guy with really good command, and so far only 1 walk in his first 5 innings. That was his thing last year too, where he was the one guy in the Royals bullpen that could throw a strike if your life depended on it. But now he's striking out a bunch of guys. 8 punch outs in 5 innings. Last year he was a sub 1 per inning guy.
Yeah.
And so far this year he's above that. That's promising from Taylor Clark. You mentioned Cuas. He's been pretty good. Amir Garrett's only walked 1 guy in 4 innings. It feels like more than that, because, God, I swear he goes full on every hitter. But, he's only walked 1 guy. The Royals, middle of the pack in the league right now in walks and strikeouts as a staff through 10 games. They're 6th in the league in earned run average. They're 6th in the league in walks. They're 7th in the league in strikeouts. They were dead last in all of those things last year.
And considering that this is not the most supremely talented staff, and that's not an insult. I mean, it is what it is. To go from worst to middle or slightly above middle of the pack with this caliber of player. That's pretty good. And it says a lot about the new staff that is in place. And it also says a lot about Cal Eldred. And I know.
And none of it's good.
Yeah, I know it's a small sample size. I know it's just 10 games plus spring training. I understand that there is a long way to go, and the weather is going to change, and that means results are going to change, and the ball is going to be hit differently and thrown differently. I understand all of that. Cal Eldred might get the last 10 games, you'd get one game of that level of performance, maybe a month. And then it was wow, maybe the pitching is figuring it out. They're going to be 14th in the AL instead of 15th.
I remember distinctly last year doing a segment where I spoke glowingly about, I think there was a 3-start run where Bubic was decent. And you're just grasping for straws. You're grasping for something positive last year, and there just wasn't much of it to be found, as evidenced by the fact that, again, they were the bottom of the league in all of these categories. That isn't this. This is something different. This is something where the improvement is visible. You can actually point to things, not just a stat line. You can point to, this guy's throwing 2 miles an hour harder. This guy's not walking people at the rate he used to walk people. There's tangible stuff you can look at, and not just, hey, they turned in an acceptable looking stat line tonight.
Yeah. No, I think there is obviously proof that the new approach, whatever that specific approach is working. Now, again, by the end of June, halfway through the season, maybe this looks a little bit different. By the end of August, when we've played 5 months, maybe things look a little bit different. But the early returns are positive. And I mean, if you're in the neighborhood of 8th or 9th in the AL in all of those stats for your pitching staff, again, considering that the talent level for this staff from top to bottom, number 1 starter all the way through final bullpen arm, is not especially great, to be at that spot with that kind of a quick turnaround with, frankly, a lot of the same arms, you're feeling pretty good about that. I do want to touch on the hitting from this weekend. Not an offensive juggernaut of a weekend. They scored more runs than the Giants did. That is important. Great.
Hit some dingers, hit some balls out of the park.
Yeah, Salvi with the big home run on Saturday. Awesome. The 2 guys I wanted to focus on specifically, 2 of the younger guys. One, just shout out to Vinny Pasquantino, because I think we are seeing what we thought Vinny could be this year. He's hitting for averages, whatever. There's value to it. There's not value to it. There's a whole spectrum of how much that actually means, but he's hitting the ball well. He's got some power. He's been one of your best offensive producers. He's been exactly where you want him to be. So that's a positive. The guy whose raw numbers don't maybe look as good right now are Bob Witt Jr., but I think at some point it is going to come to fruition that he's going to start getting hits. He's going to hit for a little bit more power. We spent so much time last week talking about, look, the raw numbers are bad, but here's why the underlying metrics, the underlying numbers indicate the Royals are doing what they can, and they're doing it well, and eventually they're going to have their efforts bear some more fruit.
Walk rate has ticked up while the strikeout rate has held, at least early going for Witt. He's walked 3 times in 38 plate appearances. That doesn't seem like much. It's also almost double his walk rate from last season.
And improvement is improvement. And you take that walk rate, the other numbers here, this was courtesy of Baseball Savant, higher average exit velocity this year than last year. That's positive. His hard hit rate, 48.1%. If you hit the ball hard, and I think, 95 miles an hour off the bat, I think is a hard hit, quote unquote.
I think that's right. It might be 90, but
somewhere in that area. Yeah. If you're hitting the ball that hard, that often, eventually it is going
95.
to work out.
I just looked it up.
Okay, 95. Yeah. If you're hitting the ball 95 miles an hour or harder off the bat, nearly half the time, you're doing something right. From your personal perspective, your abilities, it's going to work at some point. So there are positive signs there for Witt. The walks are good to see. Means his approach has been a little bit better to start this season. He's hitting the ball hard. They're going to get through. They're going to land at some point. So don't look at batting average and say, oh my God, he's at 143. What is wrong? No, do not look at it like that.
Remember, we talked about batting average on balls in play?
Right.
Generally, you end up around the 280 to 320 range. Last year, Bobby Witt Jr.'s batting average on balls in play was 295. So far this year, his batting average on balls in play is 120. That will not last.
No. No, and there will probably be a stretch at some point where he goes 12 of 16 at the plate. That's just kind of how baseball and stretches work and all that. So don't be too worried about that. The, again, underlying numbers, the predictive metrics, things like that, they all say, hey, Witt's doing what he has to do here, so don't panic too much about that. It's going to come eventually. Might take a little bit longer, but it is going to come through for Witt. And to see Pasquantino taking up the leadership role in terms of production for the young guys right now, no reason to complain about that. He's looked really good so far. Overall, pretty positive weekend.
Yeah, good weekend.
Now you get a Rangers team. I haven't seen who's starting for the Rangers.
Andrew Heaney tonight, the left-hander.
Yes, Heaney tonight. Do you know who else is going the next 2 days?
DeGrom tomorrow and...
Yeah, don't love that. Eovaldi.
Eovaldi.
These are, well, okay. Tomorrow I don't feel all that great, to be honest with you.
It'll be a fun challenge. Let's see how those kids do against a guy who's still striking out 18 guys per 9.
Hey, if you want to talk ERA, Royals starting pitcher better than Jacob DeGrom tomorrow. Jordan Lyles, 4.91. DeGrom, 5.59. Is that a factor of small sample sizes? Sure, but we're not talking about that.
I've always said ERA is the most accurate way to measure a starting pitcher.
We'll talk some more Royals baseball later on in the show today. We've got a lot of NFL to get to, including later on this hour. But first, we'll take a timeout, come back, and recap the weekend with the good, the bad, and the ugly here on 580 Sports Talk. Let's recap the weekend with the good, the bad, and the ugly here on 580 Sports Talk before we get to Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated in just a few minutes. Good for the weekend. I had a great weekend, actually. Went out to St. Louis since we didn't have a show on Friday. My wife and I left Friday afternoon, drove out there, had a great Italian dinner. More on that in a moment, though. Delicious dinner. I had a rack of lamb. It was incredible. So good. Pasta was phenomenal. Saturday, saw the Battlehawks.
You
at
did.
The Dome at America Center, the first ever XFL overtime game. It was the biggest crowd they've ever had, 35K. It was awesome. The crowd was super into it.
They heard you were coming.
Oh, yeah, they knew. They knew. My guy, AJ McCarron, did not play. He was hurt. I did not know that the day of because I wasn't on my phone much Friday. So I did not know he was not going to play, but still pulled out the win. It was a big one in the race in the West or the North Division, of the XFL. Good playoff positioning with 2 weeks to go. It was a lot of fun. And then yesterday I saw the Super Mario movie, which was also fun.
Nice.
Yeah, great weekend.
You folks listening have no idea how fortunate you are. I had to talk Brendan out of putting XFL football in the A block all 3 hours.
Yeah.
Could have been a problem.
I could have. Hey, the first 3 quarters of the game, not going to lie, not the most exciting football I've ever seen. Fourth quarter, though, awesome.
Electrifying.
Phenomenal. The ability to go for 1, 2, or 3 points, and the fact that you can be down 9 with just 4 minutes left and say it's 1-score game. Actually awesome.
What is a 3-point conversion?
It is a single play from the 10-yard line.
From the 10. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so it's doable. No, it was fun. The Battlehawks have an incredible number of guys you remember from college football or who barely made NFL rosters, like Hakeem Butler. Remember him? Yeah. Darius Shepard, who was a national champion at North Dakota State and then played for the Packers for a hot minute. Gary Jennings, remember him from West Virginia?
From the Seahawks, yeah. Seahawks draft pick.
He caught a 60-yard fake punt for a touchdown.
Oh, man.
That was awesome.
Fake punts, 3-point conversions.
Our whole section, when they bring out the punt team with 5 minutes left down 9, we're like, oh, Anthony Beck, you idiot, you morons. This is terrible. Then they ran a fake punt. It was awesome.
Strong feelings about Anthony Beck.
I nearly elbowed the woman next to me. Yeah!
Oh, God.
Had to watch out.
That would have been the bad, right?
Oh, yeah. That would have been bad.
Clocked a woman.
Blast of a weekend. By the way, if you have family, kids, you just like Super Mario and the Mario universe, go see the Super Mario movie. It's awesome. It's like an hour and a half nonstop fun and references.
Nice.
Yeah.
My good. I made a lot of money on the Masters, baby. Let me tell you a little something. If you tailed me, you won a lot of money too. And maybe that's your good for the weekend. But I sat in this chair on Wednesday and I gave you John Rahm to win the Masters. If you'd bet it that day like I did, that's plus 950 odds. It's 9.5 units. You'd have been up just betting John Rahm to win the Masters, which he did. I also gave you Cam Young, top 10 at plus 195, finished 7th.
There we go.
I gave you Hideki Matsuyama, top 20, plus 130, finishing a tie for 16. Gave you Hideki Matsui. He did not finish, so you missed on that one. They hit a couple parlays, too. Everything I bet cashed.
That's awesome.
And, ended up so, again, it's a little gauche, I think, to talk about exactly how much money you bet and how much money you make. But just keep it simple. If you had tailed me and everything I bet, and you bet 1 unit per bet, you'd ended up about 20 units. So you do the math on whatever you consider a unit to be. And that had myself a pretty nice little weekend watching the golf and winning money on the golf. Noted ball knower, as long as that ball is a Titleist, Dan Lucero.
We did pretty well. I did not bet anything on the Masters, but 2 of my picks would have cashed if I had. So
yeah, you were on G-Dub, top 20. Kerry Woodland was kicking around the leaderboard and had a rough back 9, but
still good week. I think that was his best finish at Augusta.
Yes,
second best finish.
Yes, career best finish at Augusta for G-Dub.
Yeah, awesome stuff for him. My bad. So this was not an intentional bad. This was just kind of funny. When my wife made our reservation at this restaurant in St. Louis, I don't know what she hit, but she marked that it was, or somehow it got marked that it was an anniversary dinner. Our anniversary is actually next weekend, and that was not the intent of this dinner, but something got flagged or hit, and it was entered at this restaurant that we were at our anniversary dinner, which, fine, so be it. But there was a little confusion when we got there. Oh, this is your anniversary. Well, no, it's not. They're like, oh, well, we put your name on the menu for you. Like, we customized if we know it's a special occasion.
Yo!
Like, okay, that's pretty nice. Sure. We'll pretend our anniversary is a week early. That's fine. My wife's maiden name is on her opentable.com account. So they were celebrating the anniversary of Mr. and Mrs. King. That is not our name. We are not the Kings.
Oh, no.
Now, granted, we saved the paper. I don't think Dworzinski might have fit on that piece of paper. But, yeah, it was Not our anniversary, and that is not our name, but the thought was nice nonetheless.
Wow, that's hysterical. My bad was the Royals blowing a sweep on Sunday.
Yeah.
I was really excited to talk about like all Royals positivity. Then Ryan Yarbrough had to go to wreck that for us. But it was a good weekend for the Royals, but bad 3-1 slider to Michael Conforto.
I didn't have an ugly for this weekend. This weekend was great.
I have an ugly. It comes to us from AA Baseball. We go to Chattanooga.
Oh, God.
The Chattanooga Lookouts taking on the Rocket City Trash Pandas, AA affiliate of the Los Angeles Angels. It's a 7-inning game because they got a doubleheader going. They had a doubleheader, so they play 7-inning doubleheaders in minor leagues. Rocket City goes to the top of the 7th. They are winning 3-0, and they are working on a no-hitter, and it gets away from them in this fashion: walk, out, walk, strikeout, 2 out. 2 outs and no runs have scored. 1 out away from victory. Walk, it's 3-1. Then the center fielder drops a routine fly ball. E8, 3-run score. Now you're losing 4-3. Pitching change. It gets worse. Hit by pitch. Hit by pitch. Hit by pitch. That's 5 runs. Walk. That's 6. Wild pitch. That's 7. Hit by pitch. Then finally, mercifully, a strikeout to win the inning. Though the Trash Pandas are able to score twice in the bottom of the 7th, it's not enough. They lose 7-5 despite throwing a no-hitter. They lost a no-hitter 7-5. And speaking as someone who in his life has lost a game in which he personally pitched a no-hitter, I feel your pain, Rocket City Trash Pandas. I feel like an honorary Trash Panda, having shared that experience.
This could only happen to a team that's an affiliate of the Los Angeles Angels.
Boy, that's a fact.
It really couldn't happen to
3
anyone else.
straight hit batters. How did he face a 4th guy?
In Little League, they don't let you pitch the rest of the week if that happens. Like, nah, you can't play Friday's game. You got to sit. Oh, my God. That's really funny, but also really, really bad. We have to get to a break. Matt Verderame's up next on 580 Sports Talk.
I'm Jim Cheska.
Matt Verderame is our guest here on 580 Sports Talk. He talks about the NFL, writing, podcasting, all that for Sports Illustrated. You can also find him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. He joins us every Monday here on the show. Matt, we're now just, I believe, 17 days away, is it, from the start of the NFL draft? How excited are you for lying season to finally come to a close and to finally get to the draft?
I'm excited for the draft for a lot of reasons. One, I'm looking forward to eating enough barbecue to last me about a year. Two, the draft is a fun thing. I always think it's intriguing to see the way teams think and how things fall. And three, on a very selfish note, the second the draft's done, it's kind of like everybody in the NFL media gets to have a mental break for about 3 months. So I'm a big fan of the NFL draft.
I can understand all that. We'll get to plenty of draft topics here in just a moment. We do have some news from around the league to get to, and I'll start with some news from Friday for the Kansas City Chiefs. They haven't made it official yet, but it has been reported by numerous outlets. The Chiefs are signing Richie James, the former San Francisco and New York Giants wide receiver, coming off the best year of his career. Far from a superstar signing from the Chiefs, but personally, Matt, I really like this. This feels like a very solid third, probably fourth option for that wide receiver room. What do you make of adding Richie James to this Chiefs offense?
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair way of looking at it. Look, he's coming off a year where he had over 500 yards. The Giants, who really, really struggled to have much of a passing attack, didn't have many weapons. So he moves on. You know, he's probably, if you want to look at it like 1 through 6 on a depth chart, he's probably right towards, like, I agree, probably around 4. I will say this. I think he kind of replaces McCall Hardman. I think if you're looking at it from the Chiefs' perspective, he can return punts. He returned, I believe, 24 last year in New York. I think that's kind of who he replaces. A smaller, faster, shiftier player. I think he is the Hardman replacement where the Chiefs are going to hope he runs a little more of a route tree, maybe is a little less injured, and can give him some production.
The other big wide receiver who has been tied to the Chiefs, and we know that the Chiefs have been interested in him in a while, is Odell Beckham Jr., who has a new home. And when I saw the money, Matt, that he is going to get paid by the Baltimore Ravens, I thought, I don't know if the Chiefs were ever seriously in the running to get OBJ. Were you surprised that he ended up getting $15 million guaranteed from Baltimore? I know they need receiver help in the worst way, but that seems like a lot for a dude who has very few full seasons in his career and hasn't played since 21.
I think a lot of people in the league were surprised. $15 million is guaranteed up to 18. That is a real contract. And Baltimore added these void years and so on and so forth. But Beckham doesn't care about that. He's getting his money. I don't blame the Chiefs or any other team that said there's no way. We're not paying him that. Odell Beckham is a very talented player. He has not had over 1,100 yards since 2016. So you're talking about a guy who didn't play last year, is on the wrong side of 30, who's had injury issues throughout his career, hasn't had 1,000 yards since 2019, hasn't had 1,100 yards since 2016. It's also the last year he made a Pro Bowl. I mean, you're paying for the name at this point, and you're hoping that you can get some kind of big-time production. I think he would have been a really nice finishing piece for a team like Buffalo, a team like Kansas City, if a team like the Bengals need a receiver. Of course, they don't. But for Baltimore to spend that kind of money on Beckham, I think is kind of nuts. And this idea that all of a sudden now Lamar's going to sign there because Odell Beckham's there for 1 year is nuts. That's not going to happen. I mean, he may sign there at some point, but it's not going to be because they signed Odell Beckham. So I think the Ravens are a little bit desperate, and Beckham was able to really cash in the way I don't think many people thought he would.
Matt, I think it was Nate Tice from The Athletic the other day that put together a list of guys who have more recent Pro Bowl appearances than OBJ. And one of them was Doug Baldwin. And Doug Baldwin was a really good player for several years for Seattle. Really good and really underrated player. He made a Pro Bowl in 2017. OBJ hasn't made one since then. Like, that's the kind of player that's getting 15 million, maybe as much as 18 million. Like that, those two things don't compute in my head at all.
Odell Beckham at this point is an extremely expensive flyer. That's what he is. And for the record, I felt like if the Chiefs could get him around $6 million, sure, take the flyer. Not at 15 million. That's almost on the side of reckless, really. I mean, now it's 1 year. So if you're the Ravens, okay, look, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But that you're now not able to roll over that cap space. You have all these void years you're taking hits on. I mean, I just think the Ravens are in a spot where they're kind of panicking. They have to find a way to get Lamar Jackson signed. They haven't been able to do it. They've been under a lot of heat, both locally and nationally, about, well, they never give him any receiving help. They've got to give him some receivers. Now, I still, to me, look at this. I look at this and say it doesn't change my opinion of the Ravens at all. Like, you still don't have good receivers. Your receivers you're praying that Odell Beckham is healthy and productive. You're praying Rashad Bateman is healthy and productive. And you have Mark Andrews at tight end, who's an excellent tight end. But you have nobody outside who is consistently healthy and productive. So it's a risk. It's an expensive one. I know why the Ravens did it, but I think that they really overextended themselves.
Matt Verderame is our guest. He covers the National Football League for Sports Illustrated. He joins us every Monday here on 580 Sports Talk at this time. You can follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Verderame. To double back to the Chiefs for a second, they've got, once they get the Richie James deal done, 4 wide receivers under contract: Kadarius Toney, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Sky Moore to go along with James. There's a lot of smoke around bringing Justin Watson back on a 1-year deal similar to what he was on last year. If those are the top 5 receivers for the Kansas City Chiefs on the start of training camp, 1, would you be surprised? 2, would that be good enough?
I would be surprised. I think they're going to draft a receiver early, first, second round. Would that be good enough? It could be. It could be because, look, I always look at the Chiefs and say, Kelsey's your wide receiver 1. Just is. Like, I don't care that he's a tight end. He's their number 1 receiving threat, and he's a great one. So you're really looking for your second and third and fourth guys. And to me, if MVS and Toney are somewhere in that 2 through 4 range, that's fine. You need one more guy. I know Sky Moore showed flashes, but at this point, like, you can't sit there and pencil him in for a big year. You just can't. I mean, that's hope more than it's anything else. But I do think they're going to add somebody. But even if they didn't, let's just, by some weird thing, they don't do it, which I'd be shocked if they don't. If the defense continues to improve, and they have a lot of youth on that defense, play better as the year went on, and they have a really good offensive line, as long as Mahomes is upright, they're winning a ton of football games. So, I mean, right now, you look at any book in Vegas, who's the Super Bowl favorite? Them. So, I mean, I think, yeah, it could be enough, but they've got to do what they have to upgrade that room. I think that's clearly a weakness for them.
Looking at the upcoming NFL draft, as Brendan said, we're 17 days away from the start of that draft. And there is a report today, ESPN had it, that was elsewhere, that teams are starting to sniff around Arizona's number 3 overall pick in what projects to be a pretty quarterback-loaded top half of the draft. Teams are maybe interested in moving up and targeting Arizona because they've got that big contract they owe Kyler Murray, presumably don't want a quarterback. How likely is it, do you think, Arizona moves down, and who might be the likeliest team to pay the biggest bounty to move up to number 3 overall and get their guy?
I think it's very reasonable. Like, I kind of laughed when I saw the report. Not that it wasn't an accurate report, but I feel like that's just been common up. Like, people, I think, in the NFL believe that Arizona is going to field a ton of calls because you have Levis and Richardson who are going to be sitting there at 3. Now, I would be surprised personally if Will Levis goes third. I would be surprised if he goes in the top even 6-7 picks. I don't think that his tape, and then you talk to people around the league, I don't know that everybody thinks that he merits that. That said, it takes one team. It always just takes one team with quarterbacks. Richardson, I think, is going to go very highly because as raw as he is, his talent. You know that nobody's trading out of 1 and 2. Carolina and Houston are taking quarterbacks. That's happening. If you're the Cardinals, you have maybe the worst roster in the NFL. You're going to be open for business at 3. My question is, to your point, and I guess to your question to me, like, who's the team out there that you go, okay, they could do it. Some people say the Raiders. I don't see that. Like, you just brought in Garoppolo. I think next year would be the year they might take a big swing at this point. I think if they could have gotten a 1, I think they would have done it. But at 3, I wouldn't rule them out. But I think that would be bad business the way they've handled the offseason. I look at teams like the Titans at 11. They need a quarterback long term. Would they do it? Would Seattle say, you know what, we basically have Geno on a year-to-year deal. Maybe they take a shot at Anthony Richardson for a year. But would the Cardinals trade with Seattle? I don't think they would. Would Detroit do it? Detroit has 6-12. Would Detroit try to move up and sit Richardson behind Goff for a year? And then you get into these teams that would have to give up massive hauls. But you know, teams like New England, if they really want to, I don't think they will. Minnesota, this one's a real left field one. The Ravens. Would the Ravens do it if they don't think Lamar's coming back? Again, I think those are kind of more pie in the sky ones than the first couple I gave. But yeah, look, Arizona's absolutely going to take some calls here over the next few weeks.
Final question we've got for Matt Verderame, NFL writer for Sports Illustrated, joins us every Monday here on 580 Sports Talk to talk all things NFL. I wanted to go back to wide receivers in the draft, Matt, but just from a general perspective, what are you hearing about the way the league views some of the top guys at the receiver spot or spots this year? You know, Jackson Smith-Njigba, I think, is going to be a stud at the next level. I really like Jordan Addison, but I think a lot of people think he might be kind of small, maybe a little bit injury prone. Zay Flowers, I've heard some people love him. Some people think, nah, he's a third-round talent. I think there's a lot of talent rounds 2 and 3. But what does the league think about the guys who are considered first or early second-round wide receivers this year?
All over the place. All over the place. If I ask 10 different people on my phone in league circles, in front offices, hey, rank the top 5 receivers, and in parentheses next to it, give me the round you think they'll go in, I guarantee you get at least 8 wildly different answers. I'll give you a perfect example. A kid like Jalen Hyatt, okay, out of Tennessee, for people who aren't familiar with him. Now, he is a kid who was unbelievable last year. Really performed. Herndon Hooker was his quarterback, and now Hooker's being talked about as potentially a late first-round pick. Some people think, mid-round pick. I would be surprised you went there, but Hyatt was nobody his first 2 years with the Volunteers. He did nothing. Last year was great. There are some people who absolutely look at him and think, yeah, he'll go in the first round. There are some people who think, yeah, he's going to go around like pick 60. So I think a lot of it is just, what do you value? What do you need? Scheme fit with a quarterback. You know, you have a guy who can drive the ball outside the numbers. You have a guy you kind of have to use a little bit more catching with. I think it's just the receivers more than any other position in this draft. There's a massive amount of variance in where people think they're going to go, because I think so much of it is just, you don't have that Jamar Chase guy this year where you look at him and go, yeah, that guy's an absolute no doubt about a top 10 pick. I think there's a lot of variance between the first receiver off the board and the second receiver off the board, and then maybe like the 8th or 9th guy off the board.
Matt Verderame covers the NFL for Sports Illustrated. You can find all of his work over in Sports Illustrated and SI.com. Follow him on Twitter as well, at Matt Verderame, and he joins us every Monday, bottom of the 3 o'clock hour, to talk all things NFL here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt, we appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much. We will talk to you coming up next week, when we'll be just a week and a half out from the draft. Can't wait.
Sounds good, guys. Take care.
That is Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated. Awesome stuff looking ahead to the draft. And we will continue talking draft as we start off the 4 o'clock hour of the show after our national and local news. It's Mock Draft Monday. Where do some of the experts, some of the more trusted analysts as well, believe the Chiefs will go with their first or other picks in this year's draft? We'll get to that, what is wrong with you, and more, all coming up in the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, just getting started. I'm Brendan, he's Dan. Thanks so much for being a part of the show today and every single day you come hang out with us here on 580 Sports Talk. We're out with you until 6 today, plus we've got a little 580 Sports Talk overtime coming up as we get ready for Royals versus Rangers tonight. First game of a 3-game set. 6:30 pregame, 7:05 first pitch from the ugliest ballpark in existence down in Arlington, Texas.
Man, it's so bad.
Ugh, looks like a warehouse.
Like playing baseball in a giant Costco.
And the old park was fine.
It was great. It did not have air conditioning, which is a big, big plus for those Texas summers. I understand that line of thought. I really do. But like, I've been there. Jake and I went to a ball game last summer there. We were down there for Big 12 Media Days. And it's not quite a Costco. It's more like an IKEA. You ever been to an IKEA?
Yeah.
Where like there's just a lot of, it feels very open, lots of open space and aisles that like sequentially don't make a lot of sense, and like levels that don't feel like connected to each other, and just big wide open space. And then in the middle they put a baseball diamond. I mean, if you've been and you liked it, then I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. It's just not how I think baseball ought to be watched. And from the outside, it looks like a tough shed.
Tough shed. The other most ugly park I can think of that I have seen is Chase Field in Arizona. And I've never been inside, but I remember driving by it. We're on some sort of bridge over what looked to be a rail yard. It looked like a gigantic either Kmart distribution center or like a gigantic, I don't even know what you would call, like a hangar, but for trains. That's what it looked like.
It's huge. Like if you drive through Phoenix, it's massive. Like
you can understand why they play football games there.
It looms over the skyline. I've been in there twice. The first time I went was actually the first time I'd been to a baseball game indoors.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt just so unnatural. Like we're walking up the ramps to get to the upper level where our seats were. And instead of looking out and seeing, oh, the nice outside, or looking to your left and seeing, oh, the nice outside. No, it was just wall, just concrete, and no charm in that. Yeah, I don't know. Not for me. I've been there twice. It's not for me.
I get it. I get it.
I bet it'd be cool to spend a ball game in the pool, though.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sick. How pricey is it to do that?
I don't have any idea how much it costs me in the pool.
It's probably one of those, if you have to ask, you can't afford it kind of things.
That's a fact.
If I had to guess.
That's a fact.
So we'll talk a little bit more Royals baseball later on in the show. We've also got some 580 Sports Talk overtime coming up from 6 to 6:30 when we will listen back to Fulton and Jake's conversation with Scott Miller, our good pal, national baseball writer. Does all sorts of stuff, writes books.
MLB Network
Sirius
Radio.
XM, MLB Network Radio. Yep, all that. So we will hear that conversation coming up again. We'll replay that for you coming up just after 6 o'clock today. Here in this 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, a lot of NFL to get to. It's Mock Draft Monday. We'll run through some mock drafts, including our guy, Jesse Newell. I love Jesse. I miss Jesse on the KU beat a lot. Glad he's doing the Chiefs now. That's awesome. I'm sure pay-wise, it's probably a promotion. He does a great job doing it. I say this with all the love in my heart. He is a sicko. He had a 7-round mock draft. That is sicko behavior. So we're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment, plus some other mock drafts from around the football internet today, and where they have the Chiefs going with their first pick in the draft, or multiple picks in this year's draft. We'll also talk about the Richie James edition and the fact that Odell Beckham Jr. got $15 million and has not played a football game since Super Bowl 56, and also has played a full season twice in his 8-year career.
And has made a Pro Bowl less recently than Doug Baldwin, who I think is Hall of Fame eligible now.
Wow. Yeah, he definitely is this year. That's insane. Doug Baldwin, good player. I mean, you know that.
Yeah, great. One of my favorites. Great player. Not a Hall of Famer, but great player. They'll put him in the Ring of Honor in Seattle.
Good. A lot of good games for that Seattle team. And also, we've got our first What Is Wrong With You of the week coming up later this hour, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Your texts are welcome. The text line number, as you know, 785-272-9429. And, of course, you can comment on the YouTube stream as well. Sports on 580 WIBW is the name of our YouTube account. Shout out to everyone who's already in the comment section saying hello. Hope y'all are having a great day. Thank you for watching along, listening along on 580 WIBW or online, 580WIBW.com. And, of course, watching on the YouTube stream as well. Appreciate you guys. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not already. All right, let's get to Mock Draft Monday. We've got a post up on the website right now. It is right there, smack dab in the middle of the homepage, 580wibw.com. It is our weekly Mock Draft Monday feature. Last week, I did a couple of my own. This week, just went through some of the big ones from around the internet and pooled together what some of the smartest minds in the draft world think the Chiefs are going to do with their first pick. And let's just start right away with the one I was already teasing. Our guy, Jesse Newell from the Kansas City Star. We'll get Jesse on sometime before the draft to talk a little bit about what the Chiefs are going to end up doing. But he put together a 7-round mock draft for the Chiefs. No trades, nothing like that, but 7 rounds. Sicko behavior. I respect it so much, but sicko behavior. He's got the Chiefs going wide receiver with their first pick. 31st overall, standing right there with the last pick of the first round. He's got them going with Zay Flowers, the wide receiver from Boston College. The reviews of Flowers are all over the place. Some people think he is a third-round talent. They're like, yeah, I mean, he's got speed, but, size isn't great, and his hands are just okay. Didn't play for a good team. And, in fact, his good quarterback, Phil Yurkovich, didn't even play this past year. He's been hurt, or mostly didn't play for the year. Last 2 years, in fact. He missed a lot of time injured. So, some people say, no, his ceiling is as high as anybody. He might be a top 20 pick. In fact, I saw Brett Coleman, who I know I've referenced a bunch, does film study, say that he thinks it is an open secret that Zay Flowers is going 15th or not 15th overall. Whenever the Patriots pick, when they're in the top 20, when the Patriots pick, it will be Zay Flowers. He is utterly convinced that is who their pick is going to be. So if he's there at 31, some people would say that's good value. Some would say that's a little bit of a reach. The Chiefs don't have to worry about reaching too much in this draft unless they're taking a running back or a quarterback in the first round. And we'll get to a running back in a second. But I think I would be okay with Flowers in the first round. That's probably not what I would choose. If I got my pick of anybody, I don't think I'd go Zay Flowers, but I can understand that line of logic.
He's not my favorite wide receiver in the draft, but
no,
I don't think any of the guys I like a lot better than him are going to be around at 31. I am of the mind that if the Chiefs are going to get a pass catcher, that might be the kind of thing they move up to do, whether that's a tight end or whether that's a wide receiver. That would be the kind of player they might need to move up 6-7 spots to make sure that they get their guy, whoever that is. And I have no reason to think, or no inside information that says, oh, the Chiefs love Jackson Smith and Jigba out of Ohio State or Jordan Addison out of USC. I don't have any insider info that suggests that, but those guys are not going to be there at 31. So I think those guys, though, would be difference makers. And I think if the Chiefs are going to take a pass catcher round 1, it should be a difference maker and not somebody that you're maybe not sure if they're going to crack. I don't think they take a guy to fill the Sky Moore role in their offense with the 31st pick.
Agreed.
I think that if they're taking a pass catcher round 1, it's somebody they think can start and get a significant target share day 1. And maybe they think that about Zay Flowers. I don't know. Again, the reviews are kind of mixed with him, where he's not, to me, he's not in that class with Smith and Jigba and Addison and maybe even Quentin Johnson at TCU, where I think that guy's going to get a big target share right out of the gate in his NFL career. I think those guys are going to be the guys the Chiefs have to move up to get. I would be very surprised if they sat back at 31 and there was a guy there who they felt like this is somebody who can replace Juju's target share at wide receiver. Yeah. Or even replace McCole Hardman's target share at wide receiver.
I think for me, if you're going to take a receiver there in the position the Chiefs are in, because I do think they're taking a first receiver within the first 2 days. Or a pass catcher, I think, within the first 2 days. I'm fairly convinced of that, I think you need to take someone, if you're going to take one in the first round, who you have a very clear vision for what they are going to do, and it's almost obvious what they can and what they are going to do. Flowers, to me, isn't quite that. If you were to say, hey, whatever McCole Hardman was supposed to do last year before he got hurt, that's what Zay Flowers is going to be, I would say, okay, I can understand it. I don't think I would take that guy in the first round, but I can understand where you're going with that. Whereas Smith and Jigba has everything except height. I mean, I think, is going to be a star in the NFL. I really do. Johnston maybe doesn't have quite the natural, ball skills or isn't a great route runner, but you can see he is an X receiver and he's going to run vertical routes for you. And he's got speed. He can beat guys with his first step. that's what he is going to be.
All I know is that TCU offense asked him a lot last year. Hey, go get it. And he went and got it.
Absolutely. He was great. And if you go back and you scout Max Duggan, like from a draft perspective, not exactly the most on-target quarterback in the country last year.
No.
And Johnston still made it happen. So a guy like that, or if you throw in, the guy that Matt mentioned, Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee, who will probably be a day 2 pick. Is he super refined? No. Is he fast as hell? Yup. You know what he is going to do. So I think if you're the Chiefs, if you're taking a receiver that early, I just want someone who what they are going to do, and they're going to do it well right off the rip. Jesse also, I think, takes an interesting approach with this mock draft. He's got them doubling up at a few different positions. Defensive end, this is one we have in a couple mock drafts this week. Derek Hall from Auburn. He also has them going with another depth defensive end later. Viliami Fehoko from San Jose State. I'm going to be honest with you. I watch a lot of West Coast football because I like to stay up late on Saturday nights. I like the draft. I like to really dive into these players. I do not know who Viliami Fehoko is. I have no idea. He's also got a couple of different offensive tackles, one from Pitt in the 7th round. He's also got a BYU pick, so almost 2 P5 guys in the 3rd round. That's Blake Freeland from BYU. But Jesse also has a 4th round running back. And you said to me today that if the Chiefs took Tyjae Spears from Tulane in the 4th round with 122nd overall pick, he would immediately be their best running back.
I firmly believe that. And I like Isaiah Pacheco. That's not me talking down on a guy who was good enough to work his way from 7th round pick to start and lead the team in rushing in the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not down on Isaiah Pacheco. I'm that high on Tyjae Spears.
I think that's totally fair.
I think Tyjae Spears is awesome. And if they let him get to the 4th round, they let him get to the Chiefs, somebody messed up. Like, I think this is a guy, like, I think there's, I don't want to compare him directly to Kareem Hunt, but I feel the same way about Spears as I felt about Kareem Hunt coming out of the draft when he was drafted. Mm-hmm. Just a guy who every time he touches the ball, you think he might score a touchdown. Like, those guys, generally, the guys who are just faster than everybody else and have a nose for the goal line and have a knack for making big plays, like, I don't think that goes away when you get to the NFL. I think Tyjae Spears is built different, got that dog in him, whatever cliche you want to use. I love that player. And if the Chiefs drafted him, I do. I think he would be, like, him and Isaiah Pacheco would be one hellacious 1-2 punch at running back.
Jesse also does have the Chiefs taking another running back late. I think it was the 6th round.
Yeah, Keaton Mitchell out of East Carolina.
Good player.
And the thought process here is that Clyde Edwards-Helaire may not return to the team, and Jerick McKinnon is still a free agent. I think they gotta re-up McKinnon. I think so. He's too important as a pass protecting, pass catching 3rd down option. I can't imagine, like, if there was somebody out there who was going to give McKinnon like multiple years, big money, I think it would have happened already. And I think that's probably where the Chiefs were at with McKinnon. Like, hey, if somebody wants to give you 2-3 years, somebody wants to give you X amount of million per year, then go do it. Go get your money. But ideally, that seems like a match made in heaven. I can't imagine they wouldn't bring back McKinnon if they weren't able to do it.
Can I be a nerd for a second?
Yeah, do it.
Episode 7, Star Wars, The Force Awakens. Really like that movie. A lot of people didn't love the new sequels. I thought that was a good movie. I liked Episode 7. They wake up R2-D2. They get him just powered up enough near the end of the movie to get the final piece of a map. They've got this big map. They're searching the galaxy. They got to find Luke Skywalker. They need the final piece. R2-D2 wakes up. They power him up. He's got that final piece of the map that kind of completes it all together. That's kind of Jerick McKinnon, right? Like, you've got the quarterback is what makes it all go. You've got the NFL player in Patrick Mahomes. You've got the coach. You've got these nice skill position players. You've got a great offensive line. But having a running back who can catch passes, who you can rely on to run and not fumble, who's also an above-average pass protector, that's huge for a team that's going to drop back 65% of the time.
It's like having a Swiss Army knife. Like, it can be what you need it to be. And Jerick McKinnon can be what you need him to be. He can give you 15 carries one game. He can give you 1 carry and a bunch of good pass block reps the next game. He will be what you need him to be. He's just that kind of teammate, that kind of player. And they sure don't win the Super Bowl without Jerick McKinnon this last year. So, no, I think he's got to come back. I would be very surprised if he doesn't still, even though obviously he was not made an offseason priority by the Chiefs. I think some of that is still like having a little regard for a veteran player who might have an opportunity to get one more multi-year deal before he's done playing. May have earned that opportunity. If that's not out there for him, though, I think he comes back to Kansas City.
I sort of think Clyde Edwards-Helaire might get moved draft weekend. Like, I think you're looking at a 6th-round pick or something for Clyde, and it's kind of unfortunate the way it unfolded, but when the guy didn't even show up to the championship parade this year, that kind of made you feel like, all right, I feel like this relationship may have run its course. If you go out next year and your week 1 running back rotation is Isaiah Pacheco, Tyjae Spears, and Jerick McKinnon, for very little money, you've got one of the best running back rooms in the AFC. Easily.
Yeah.
And you've got every single base covered. I would love a result like that. Another multi-round mock draft we've got for today's Mock Draft Monday here on 580 Sports Talk. This is from our guy, Thor Nystrom, who's now writing over at fantasypros.com. We'll get Thor on here in the next 17 days as well. I don't know of anybody out there who knows the names of players ranked like 200 through 400 in the draft process than Thor Nystrom. He's got a defensive player, a defensive end for the Chiefs at the end of the first round. Will McDonald from Iowa State. We obviously know that name very well. And then he's got, with the final pick of the second round, Marvin Mims from Oklahoma. I'm going to start there real quick. Second round, you get a player like Marvin Mims. Yes, that is a player I would happily take at the end of the second round. I've loved his game his entire time at Oklahoma. I know this year was weird with that Sooners program. That is a hit. I would like him on my favorite team, the Green Bay Packers. I think that'd be a great fit for the Chiefs. Probably not a bona fide number 1, but that skill set, that shiftiness, that top end speed once he does get going downfield, would love that for the Chiefs. He's got Will McDonald, though, going at the end of the first round. He's an interesting prospect because his college production, you can't touch. 3-time first team All Big 12.
Yep.
That's a big deal. He owns Iowa State's single season sack record. He owns their career sack record. Some good defensive players have come through Iowa State. He compares him to Julian Peterson, who played for the Seahawks, among other teams. Very solid player. He had 1 10-sack season, a bunch of years, like 5-6 sacks. Was never a star, but was a very solid player for about a decade. I think if you're the Chiefs, you would like a little bit higher upside than that if you're going to spend probably 5 years on a guy, at least 5 years, and a first-round pick. But by the same token, I mean, last year you pretty much rolled with a bunch of dudes on the edge who were solid as opposed to great, and it worked out pretty well. So if you're replacing Frank Clark with a guy in Will McDonald who maybe is just young-ish Frank Clark, maybe a little higher upside pass rush, lower upside run defense, I can understand it. I wouldn't be wowed, but I could understand a move like that.
Yeah, that's not like a real sexy pick, but I think it would be a good pick. And guys played a lot of quality football. Like you said, 3 times a first team all Big 12 selection. You know, make all the jokes you want about defensive play in the Big 12, but your first team all conference 3 times. I don't care what conference you play. I don't care if you play in the NESCAC. Like you 3-time first team all conference, you're playing some damn good football. The Julian Peterson comp is interesting because that's a guy I remember pretty well. Never, like you said, a superstar player, but somebody defenses had to account for, somebody who can make plays against the run and make an impact in the pass rush, a well-rounded, as you put it, defensive end. I would not dislike that pick.
By the way, before we get to one other mock draft here, which has the biggest high ceiling, low floor pick of any, I want to get to a couple comments here from the YouTube stream from our guy Vance, who mentions, do you think Felix Anudike-Uzomah might be a possibility? Yes, I absolutely think he is a possibility.
I think he's a day 2 pick. Thor Nystrom's mock draft, while we're looking at it, has him going 46th overall to New England. Middle of the second round. I don't know that he'll sneak into the first round necessarily, but I think he'll be there middle late day 2. And that's in range for the Chiefs. Absolutely.
If he was there at 50 with the Chiefs picking 63, I would make a move to go get him. I think he is good enough that I'd be willing to move up on day 2 to go get him if he's within 10 to 15 picks. I'm not jumping to 33 to go get him, but I would say if he's there middle of day 2, I would be interested in moving up. I think he's that talented. Also mentions Roschon Johnson from Texas. Roschon Johnson was a backup at Texas, and he might be like a first 3-round pick. The draft people love him. He had a huge Senior Bowl. He's been hyped up like, wow, how is this guy a backup? Well, the guy in front of him was the best running back in all of college football. That's why he was a backup.
Yeah, he started just about anywhere else.
Yeah, he would. Yeah, any other program. And amazing. And he was the 3rd best running back in the Big 12. That's crazy because both Deuce and Bijan were ahead of him.
Interesting point from the 316 on our text line. Again, you can hit us up 785-272-9429. Argues against the Will McDonald selection, saying older player too small. He is older. There are a lot of
Mhm.
a lot of guys who are seniors, redshirt seniors, are on the older side because you have the COVID year thrown in there as well. Listed at 6'3", 241.
It's a good point because that would be by far the smallest defensive end on the Chiefs
We
roster.
know Steve Spagnuolo has a taste for bigger defensive ends.
Mhm.
He prefers his guys at that position to be bigger. Like Karlaftis is big, and
Yeah, in fact, he's the smallest one at 6'4", 263. So that's an inch taller and 20 pounds heavier.
yeah. So like physically, Felix fits that mold maybe a little better at 6'3", 255.
Yes.
So there are definitely guys who fit that mold at edge. Like if Miles Murphy were around, he's a Chief. Like he built like a Chief edge, 6'4", 268. Like those guys.
Mhm.
Will McDonald might be a little light in the seat for Steve Spagnuolo's taste. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a great point by the 316. Jesse Newell, by the way, in his mock draft had Derek Hall, the edge rusher from Auburn, in the second round. I had the same feeling about him. Good player, but he's only 6'2" and about 250 pounds. Like that's not really in the Chiefs' mold of what they like from the defensive ends. The last one I wanted to get to here that I think is fascinating from CBS Sports and Ryan Wilson. Chiefs stay at 31. They get their pass catcher. It's a tight end, Darnell Washington from Georgia. The word freak is overused when we talk about the draft. Way overused. It's right for Darnell Washington. He is 6'6", and he runs a 4.6 40. He's a tight end. He's got game-breaking speed as a tight end. Now, his hands need some work. Route running needs some work. But if you've got a guy that big who can block you simply by running into you and is good at it, that ceiling is so high. That's your big home run swing. This is either going to work or it's going to be a disaster pick. I don't hate it, though.
It's like the question is like, what if a gun safe could catch a football and run a 4.6?
Yeah, it really is.
Like, it's just this big, giant brick of a man who has untapped potential, like potential we're just starting to see as a pass catcher. And even as he becomes that, like, go ahead and play, 21 personnel, the 2 tight end personnel for the Chiefs. And yeah, good luck getting to Patrick Mahomes behind Darnell Washington. He stays in a block.
He is 6'6.5", 264 pounds, has 11-inch hands, an 83 3/4-inch wingspan. That is the biggest of every tight end in the class this year. And he's not even 22 years old. He was a backup. Yeah. He wasn't even the best tight end at Georgia, which is terrible. Brock Powers is going to be so good. But I don't hate that. That is your tight end that's somewhere between a need and a luxury this year. But God, there's only so many chances to draft dudes with that kind of build. And if you trust that you've got the system around him, that he does not have to be great right away, that you can bring him along and you don't need him to be that guy instantly, I think it makes sense. I don't know that I would do it, but I would not be opposed to it. And that would be your flashy pick, by the way. If you wanted to go get that dude at tight end, that's your flashy pick. I don't hate it.
Hey, and we've been asking for the Chiefs to bring in another big target.
Yes, that's true. There's nobody bigger.
No, they don't get a lot bigger than that guy.
If you've got a favorite player in the draft, let us know. A player you really want the Chiefs to go get, let us know. Hit us up on the text line. Hit us up in the YouTube comments as well. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. Our YouTube stream can be found on our channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. Let's take a quick timeout. When we come back on the other side of this break, we've got the week's first What is Wrong with You on 580 Sports Talk. It is time for the first What is Wrong with You of the week here on 580 Sports Talk, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Top City Metal cuts the metal you need to your specifications, saving time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to metal. Top City Metal Supply can be found on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Dan, why don't you go first to lead off our stories for today?
This keeps happening, and we keep bringing these stories to you on What is Wrong with You. And I don't know why these people won't learn from each other. If people listened to What is Wrong with You, they would know this is a bad idea. This is not the kind of thing you get away with. But we got another guy try to pull over an off-duty officer pretending to be a police officer. This is 18-year-old Christian Katan Mansour of Macomb Township, Michigan, was arrested this week after authorities say he posed as a cop and unwittingly attempted to pull over an off-duty police officer. He was driving a BMW. I love how this story opens. Christian Katan Mansour, 18, of Macomb Township, who is not a police officer, was driving a BMW and flashed red and blue lights during an attempted traffic stop of a Waterford Township officer who was off the clock about 11 p.m. on Monday. The incident occurred in Rochester Hills, which is about 30 miles north of Detroit. The sheriff's office says Mansour positioned his BMW behind the off-duty officer. When Mansour drove past the officer, she followed him to confront him. During the confrontation, the officer identified herself as a police officer and asked Mansour for identification. He claimed he was a Detroit police officer from the 12th precinct. She asked him for ID. He said he needed to get it from his car. He went back to his car and he drove away. The off-duty officer followed Mansour to a trailer park in a community about 8 miles away, but lost sight of the BMW. Deputies later saw Mansour switching license plates from one vehicle to another he owned. He was then arrested after a short foot chase. Arraigned Wednesday on a misdemeanor charge of impersonating police officer, released on $5,000 bond.
First things first. If you know anything about Rochester Hills, Michigan, it is not surprising that an 18-year-old is driving a BMW. But I will ask you this. Have you ever known a police officer to drive a BMW?
No.
Never been a thing you've noticed before?
No. Like in the movies and on TV, you know, the undercover cops have vintage cars. Like, you know, whatever Starsky and Hutch were rolling around in.
No, I mean, I'm thinking like, I still think of Crown Vics. No police officers drive Crown Vics anymore, I don't think. But like that's what I think of as a police car.
Right.
Not a BMW.
Yeah, like a luxury BMW that just happens to be, a police vehicle.
I imagine the little single light on top too that like you see in a movie from the 60s or 70s, like officer himself
put
puts
it up
the light on
roof.
top.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is so funny.
Also, I don't know how do they both get out of the car? And she says, "Hey, listen, I'm a police officer. Show me." Did he get out first? Like, "Hey, I pulled you over." She says, "Yeah. Well, guess what, bud? I'm an actual police officer. What precinct do you represent?" He says, "Well, let me go get that. It's right over here," and drove away.
Cloud of dust pops up like it's a cartoon.
I can't believe that worked.
Like, why would you let him go?
Yeah, seriously. This other officer, negligent in her duty, like follow him to his car at least.
Right. You're going to stand right here. I'm going to make a phone call. Also, yes, literally, you should not do this anymore. But also, I find this story funny every time it happens.
Yeah, I hope people keep doing it because every time we hear about it, we'll keep bringing it to What is Wrong with You.
My story today takes us to DeBary, Florida. I'm going to read you the headline from clickorlando.com.
Mm-hmm.
Naked, greased-up Florida man accused of breaking into two homes, jumping in pool.
You had me at naked, greased-up Florida man. This is our winner. Congratulations. Thank you, Top City Metal Supply. What do we got coming up next segment?
Deputies say they responded around 2 a.m. to a report of a burglary at a home on High Banks Road and encountered 34-year-old Blake Tuckman. The Volusia County Sheriff's Office said Tuckman smashed out a window to break into one home, then left and broke into another. I don't want this one. I want that one. Deputies then encountered Tuckman at the second house. Body-worn camera video released by the sheriff's office shows Tuckman running from the deputy, jumping into a pool, then climbing out of the pool and jumping onto a trampoline. The sheriff's office said it took 4 deputies to get custody of Tuckman, who kicked or hit the deputies. One even got a cut on his arm. In addition to being naked, the sheriff's office said that Tuckman was covered in wheel-bearing grease, peppermint oil, and blood. They believe he may have been under the influence of an unknown substance or substances.
Oh, word?
Duh. It took 3 medical professionals to secure him to a stretcher for evaluation and treatment. He faces charges of 2 counts of occupied burglary, 3 counts of battery on a law enforcement officer, 2 counts of criminal mischief, and resisting arrest with violence. And may I also add my own charge, 1 count of being nude and greased up.
What?
I wish we could show you video of this. There's just a still shot of this naked dude flopped down on a trampoline.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Wheel bearing grease, peppermint oil, and blood.
I bet you that smelled like trash. Instant vomit.
Did you think he stole any of those things? Do you think that's what his bounty was from the break-ins?
I would imagine so.
He jumped in the pool and they could still tell. Like, he was in a pool, in a body of water, and got out and was still like, nah, man, you're still reeking of peppermint oil and grease.
Dude, that would smell so bad.
Do you think the peppermint oil was to mask the smell of the grease?
It might have been.
I'm going to guess it didn't work.
Or he just said, oh, man, this smells good, and just rubbed it all over himself.
Rolled around in it.
Just get your win for today.
Naked, greased up Florida man was going to get my win no matter what the rest of that headline said.
Naked, greased up Florida man. That's a very easy title for us. He is the winner today in What Is Wrong With You. Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field, right here in Topeka. Naked, greased up Florida man. Let's get to a timeout. On the other side of this break, though, the Chiefs have a new wide receiver. It is not Odell Beckham Jr. because he is getting paid way too much money. We'll explain next on 580 Sports Talk. Back on 580 Sports Talk, Brendan and Dan here with you on this Monday, April 10th. Thank you so much for stopping by. Got Royals baseball coming up tonight, 7:05 first pitch, with a 6:30 pregame following some 580 Sports Talk overtime right here on the Sports Voice of Kansas. Your home for Royals baseball, 580 WIBW. Wanted to get to some NFL notes. Let's start with the Chiefs here. They signed Richie James, reportedly signed Richie James. It hasn't been made official yet, but the former New York Giant and San Francisco 49er, likely going to be a one-year deal, I don't know, $5-ish million range, $4-ish million.
3 to 5, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, it's not going to be anything too pricey. Coming off the best year of his career, set a new career-high 57 receptions, 569 yards, had 4 touchdowns. His whole career prior to this season, he had 3 receiving touchdowns, no more than 1 in a single season. Now, he was much more of a short yardage threat this year than he's ever been before. Shortest yards per catch, shortest average depth of target, and his fewest amount of yards after catch per reception this year. Only 3 yak yards per catch this year. But caught the ball a lot more, had the lowest drop rate of his entire career. He was healthy the whole year, which was big because in 2021, he never played. He was on IR for the entire year. I like this addition. He's no more than your 4th option because you've got, Travis Kelce is obviously number 1, but just among the wide receivers, you've got Sky Moore, you've got MVS, you've got Kadarius Toney, who we've talked about all offseason to this point. The Chiefs believe can be a wide receiver 1 type of player, who's also briefly teammates last year with Richie James. So for what is likely going to be 1 year and super cheap, your 4th option wide receiver, I like this. Now, this probably means Justin Watson is out of the picture, I would imagine.
I don't think so.
Okay.
It kind of depends on how the draft goes. If our friend Matt Verderame is correct, they probably take a wide receiver first 2 days of the draft, first 3 rounds, and then that might be your group of 5.
Yeah.
So James to me is interesting because theoretically he's an option to return punts. Fumbled 3 punts last year, including 2 in 1 game.
Not great.
Not what you want. But then again, Chiefs had some trouble hanging on to punts last year too. So just another option, another, in-house option that can do that. So maybe you don't have to, maybe Trey McDuffie doesn't have to do it.
Yeah.
I think that it's probably fair to say what, again, Matt Verderame said, that this feels like somebody who can do a lot of the same things that McCole Hardman did. A lot of the jet motion stuff, a lot of the, some stuff in the running game, some of the quick screen stuff, the stuff that they made Sky Moore do last year that Sky Moore wasn't particularly suited for.
Yeah. So if Sky doesn't have to do that stuff again, great. If that's what this move does, already a win in my book.
I don't know if it's an overreaction to say that we haven't seen what Sky Moore can really do as an NFL player. I think we saw some glimpses at times, but I think the role he takes in the offense next year is going to look very different than the role he kind of got shoehorned into, I think, as a rookie this last year. I think we're going to see him line up on the outside a little more, do a little bit more traditional wide receiver stuff and less gadgety stuff. I think the gadgety stuff is probably going to be, we're going to see Kadarius Toney get some of that. And I think Richie James probably fits in that mold.
I would agree with that. I'm 100% with you on that. And look, he's your 4th or 5th wide receiver. This isn't an earth-shattering move, but in terms of shoring up depth for your wide receiver room, I like it. I think it's a very shrewd move by Brett Veach. The big wide receiver news from the weekend is that Odell Beckham Jr. is a Baltimore Raven. 1 year, $15 million guaranteed with incentives that could get it up as high as $18 million. The structure of this contract is very strange. It is essentially a 1-year deal with 4 void years, which, okay, fine. But the way it's structured, according to Spotrac, is very interesting. His cap hit this year is only $3.9 million, which sounds like, how does that work out? His dead cap in 2024 is $11 million. So they're going to pay the majority of this money to him in the first void year, as opposed to the actual year he's going to be playing with them. So if he ends up playing well, staying healthy, and they extend him, all right, it's fine. whatever. You'll spread the money out. He'll get a little bit more of a raise in year 2. You'll spread it out a little bit further. Okay, that's fine. If he doesn't get a second year and they don't extend him, he gets hurt, he stinks, whatever it ends up being, this becomes the first ever bad 1-year contract. That's a lot of money for a dude who didn't play all year, man. He's on the wrong side of 30 now. Hasn't been a Pro Bowler since 2016. I don't know. If he's enough to get Lamar Jackson to say, yes, I wanted him here. You brought him in. You got me a receiver. Let's go. Well, then Lamar's got wild priorities, but fine. It works out for Baltimore.
So there were 22 players in the NFL last year with 1,000 receiving yards. 22 players went over the 1,000 receiving yard mark last season. Do you know how many of them were 30 years old or over or older?
Close to 0?
The number is 3.
All right, fairly close.
One of them is Travis Kelce, who is ageless and will defeat Father Time in hand-to-hand combat someday.
And is a surefire Hall of Fame player.
The other 2 are Tyler Lockett and Devontae Adams, both of whom turned 30 during last season. That's it. That's the list of guys last year that were 30 or older and had 1,000 receiving yards. We're how far removed again from the last 1,000-yard season for Odell Beckham Jr.?
It was, I know the last truly great year he had was 2016. It was the boat pick year. The last 1,000-yard season, did he have one more after that? He had 2 more. He got just over 1,000 yards in 18 and 19. So 2019, he had 1,035 yards on 74 catches. The 3 years since then, 319 yards in 7 games for Cleveland, 537 yards and a decent playoff run across 2 teams in 2021, and then a torn ACL, and has not played since Super Bowl 56. And again, let's not forget, he has torn 2 ACLs in the last 3 years.
You know how many 30-plus-year-olds had over 900 receiving yards last year?
Ooh.
Trick question. The answer is still 3.
Still 3?
Do you know how many 30 or older players had over 800 receiving yards last year?
Is it still 3?
It is still 3.
That's wild. And again, look, I'm sorry to cut you off, but look at the guys who we're talking about here. Surefire Hall of Famer, best tight end in football, maybe the best tight end of all time. The guy who I still think is number 1, if at the very least a top 3 receiver in the entire NFL. And then Tyler Lockett, who just defies expectation at every level, everywhere he's ever been.
There are 6 in the top 50 in receiving yards last year who were 30 or older at any point during last season. Keenan Allen had 752 receiving yards. And then when you get to number 49 and number 50 on the receiving yard ranks last year, DeAndre Hopkins and Adam Thielen.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And then
they give him $15 million guaranteed.
After that, the next highest total for receiving yards for a 30-something, Marvin Jones with 529 receiving yards. Like, there is so much hullabaloo surrounding Odell Beckham. There was so much last season. Who's he going to sign with? Could he swing the playoff chase? Could he swing the Super Bowl chase in the NFC, the AFC? And this offseason, who could he make a major impact for? Like, would anybody be shocked if he had less than 800 receiving yards next year? Because, like, that's kind of the track record for 30-something wide receivers. And that's before we get to the part where he's coming off of his 2nd major knee surgery. It's important to have good knees if you're a wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, fairly valuable, especially a guy whose game depends a lot on change of direction and cutting and getting open with your legs. Yeah, seems fairly important. Here's a couple other numbers, by the way, to just point to how ridiculous it is. You mentioned Marvin Jones, outside, the next one outside, what was it, the top 60 or top 50?
Outside the top 50, yeah, you have to go down to 76th on the list for Marvin Jones.
You know what he's getting paid this year?
Marvin Jones? 7, 8 million?
3.
Oh.
Marvin Jones, who is still a solid player, $3 million. Here's another comparison for you. A.J. Brown, where would you rank him just off the top of your head in terms of NFL receivers right now?
Probably a top 10 guy for me.
Certainly a top 10 for me.
You can make an argument he'd be top 5.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with both those points. He got a 4-year deal from the Eagles, when the Titans traded him last offseason. $57 million guaranteed over 4 years. A.J. Brown, a no-doubt surefire top 10 receiver in the NFL, maybe top 5 after last year, is getting less guaranteed money per year than Odell on this deal. That is dumb. That is just dumb. What's the bit from Glass Onion, the Knives Out movie? It's brilliant. No, it's not. It's just dumb. That whatever that line is from Daniel Craig, that's what this is. Like, oh man, maybe this is the missing piece to get Lamar back, and you can spread it out, and maybe you build in a chance for a second year. No, it's dumb.
And if that's the cost, like Ian Rappaport has reported that Odell Beckham didn't sign that contract without some assurances that Lamar Jackson was going to be in a Baltimore Ravens uniform next year. Now, I don't know if those assurances come from Lamar Jackson himself or if that's just from the Ravens, and they're trying to placate their star quarterback, which you're in a bad spot if you got to placate your star quarterback.
Yeah.
In the first place, like you're already in a bad spot because you don't want to placate him with the money that he's worth and that he's earned and that he deserves. So you got to go turn around and give a huge chunk of it to a guy who might be washed. And look, in his day, in his pomp, Odell Beckham Jr. was a top 5 receiver in the game.
Yes.
I think in his first 3 seasons, he was a top 5 receiver in the game, very easily a top 5 receiver in the game. What is he now? What is he now? What are you getting? And I think we talked about this when there started, and it was Nate Taylor of The Athletic who said that the Chiefs have coveted Odell Beckham Jr. They were significantly interested in bringing him in. And I said, I just don't know that he moves the needle at this stage in his career. Mm-hmm. That's needle moving money he got from the Baltimore Ravens. Mm-hmm. And go with God. I don't know how that's going to work for them. I'm not optimistic.
Look, and again, if that is what makes it happen for Lamar to sign a long-term deal in Baltimore, again, priorities all out of whack, but fine, it works out. Their big wide receiver moves this year are potentially washed $15 million guaranteed to Odell Beckham Jr. and Nelson Aguilar. At some point, Eric DaCosta has to know, like, people need to catch the ball, right? Like, you'd think that would eventually pop into his head.
Just throw it to Mark Andrews, man.
Apparently so. We've got to take a break for the news. We'll come back. We've got headlines, a Royals preview, and more in the 5 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. to go on 580 Sports Talk on this Monday afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you up until 6 o'clock, plus a little 580 Sports Talk overtime tonight. Listening back to Jake and Fulton's conversation with Scott Miller from MLB Network Radio. Coming up this hour on 580 Sports Talk, we will, of course, continue to take your texts and your YouTube comments. Our YouTube stream can be found on our channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. That's the name of the channel. And, of course, the text line wide open, 785-272-9429 is the text line number. Chime in with your thoughts about, well, anything we're talking about on the show today. Here in this 5 o'clock hour, we've got a Royals preview to get to, Royals versus Rangers tonight. We've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines and more, plus your texts, your comments, all that coming up between now and 6 o'clock. Well, let's jump right on into it then with our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. We've got plenty to get to. I am going to abdicate the first headline, which I normally just jump in and take. I'm going to abdicate that position to you today, though, Dan, because the Masters wrapped up this weekend. You won a lot of money on it. I know you had a lot of attention focused on it. So I will let you recap Masters weekend for us.
Jon Rahm is your Masters champion for 2023. You would have known that was going to happen if you just simply listened to me on the Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. But no, in all seriousness, the Spaniard wins his second career major following up his U.S. Open triumph in 2021 by securing the green jacket with a 4-shot victory over the field yesterday. Shot a final round 69. When Rahm took the course yesterday morning, they were on the 7th green after the second and third days of the Masters were wiped out essentially by weather. They were on the 7th green of the third round, and Rahm was trailing Brooks Koepka by 4 shots. On that 7th green, there was an immediate 2-shot swing. Rahm made a birdie. Koepka made a bogey. And from there, it was the Jon Rahm show as he takes home the green jacket, a first-place finish at 12 under par 276 for the weekend. Tied for second, the aforementioned Brooks Koepka, who was tied for the lead after day one, led by 2 after the second round, and led by as many as 4 in the third round before that lead slowly trickled away as he struggled to a 75 on Sunday. Tied for second also, Phil Mickelson at 52 years old, the oldest male golfer to finish at a top 5 position at a major tournament. He's also the oldest player to ever win a major when he won the PGA back in 2021. A final round 65 that CBS tried their damnedest to ignore as it was happening. Mm-hmm. He was out there with Jordan Spieth, and they were showing those shots like several minutes after they were happening. Like those two went out and lit the course up on Sunday, and CBS just did their level best to like, well, this is also kind of happening, and not making it the big deal that it probably should have been, considering this is a 52-year-old man who was the clubhouse leader for the better part of 2 hours on Sunday at the Masters.
He was playing like his bank accounts depended on it. Yeah, I mean, CBS knows who butters their bread.
Mm-hmm.
I probably shouldn't, in terms of TV programming, probably should have paid more attention, but I get it.
It was fascinating to see that, like, Philip Mickelson has spent almost all of the goodwill he had with the golf public.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that's not a controversial thing to say. It's the controversial things that he has said and done that spent just about all of that goodwill. But by the time the 72nd hole rolled around on Sunday, there were some good feelings back for Phil, because you were reminded in that moment what a great champion, what a great golfer he's been, even if he's not always, said the right thing or made the best decisions about his money. All-time great golfer, though, and he showed it again. Mickelson and Koepka tied for second. Rounding out the top 5, a 3-way tie for fourth, Jordan Spieth, Patrick Reed, another former champion, another live player who shot a 68 on Sunday, and Russell Henley, who kind of snuck up and made a little bit of noise early on Sunday, but faded late, finished with a 7 under par score, same as Spieth and Reed. Tied for 7th, Cameron Young and Victor Hovland, both at 6 under. Sahith Theegala, the pride of Pepperdine, solo 9th, 5 under par. Then a big tie for 10th place at 4 under par. Last year's champion, Scottie Scheffler. Last year's U.S. Open champion, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Colin Morikawa, and Xander Schauffele. also tied. Gary Woodland, best career finish at a Masters. He was tied with Patrick Cantlay at 3 under par for 14th overall. G-Dub was in the mix. He was 4 shots back at one point on Sunday, but played the final 9 and 3 over par, ended up even par 72 for the afternoon.
Good day or good showing for him overall, though.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a grind for him since his U.S. Open championship in 2019, as everybody who's followed him knows, but set a pretty good standard for himself with a 68 on Thursday, and then played the final 3 days and just won over par, and that's good enough for a top 15 finish. It was a fascinating week of golf, and of course the Live Golf subplot hangs over all of this as it hangs over all of professional golf.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of that narrative coming out of this. Like, was this a good week for Live Golf because Mickelson and Koepka and Reed were in the top 5, and because like Joaquin Neiman was tied for 16th, and there were some other 8 of the 12 Live player or 12 of the 18 Live players that were there made the cut. Was that a good week for Live? Like, no, it was not. What it was a bummer of a week for golf, because we were all reminded how much better the golf is when all of the best players are in the same place. Mm-hmm. And we don't get that anymore because of Live, because of that big pile of money that the Saudis threw at some of the best golfers of a generation. And now we don't get to see Brooks play the way that Brooks Koepka is capable of, where he is, I mean, say what you want about the person.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of things, I think, to say about Brooks Koepka, but he's a killer in these majors, and he's kind of fun to root against. And you don't have the villains in golf. Liv's got all the black hats, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the bad guys. Patrick Reed is a fun guy to root against. Philip Mickelson can be a fun guy to root against these days. But it was a fun golf tournament because all the best players were there. And we don't get that anymore. Like, we get all the best PGA Tour golfers in one place for the elevated events now. And that's all well and good. But to get all the best golfers in the world in the same place, the majors do that, and nowhere else gets to do that. So, no, do I think this was a good week? Did watching Philip Mickelson finish in a tie for 2? I don't know why I'm calling him Philip all of a sudden.
Phil died when the Live Tour came in. Philip.
He looks gaunt, like, out there now. He's lost a lot of weight, been eating a lot of dressing free salads and like shakes and what have you. He's Philip now, without the extra poundage. He's not the hefty lefty like he used to be. No, like, does this make me want to watch Phil Mickelson and Brooks Koepka put on their stupid team uniforms and play that ridiculous 54-hole team format on the CW? No, I've never wanted to watch that less. It did not make me, like, fired up for the next Live Golf event. It did not have that effect on me. I can't imagine it having that effect on anybody else who watched. The effect was the disappointment that this is what golf is now, that these are the only events where we get to see all the best ones play. And when you get this, you get drama, and you get the unexpected, and you get, like, the fun stuff about a golf tournament. So, fun weekend. Jon Rahm is a great champion. He's going to win a lot more majors before he's done. This was his second.
Couple quick thoughts. Questions, really. Do you call it a choke for Koepka?
I think you can. I don't think that would be unfair to say that a guy who was 4 shots up and then finished the weekend 73-75, like, it's not playing great golf. Mm-hmm. Like, Rahm was just steady, and beat Koepka, who was unsteady. He went 22 holes without making a birdie, 22 holes without scoring. Like,
I know that's bad.
And like, for the real golf sickos out there, you know that, like, Koepka won 4 majors, like, bang, 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 ripped through 4 major championships. And ever since then, even the last major he won, where he shot a 74 on Sunday and didn't win it so much as everybody else around him kind of lost their cool at the same time, he's had some instances, including that 2021 PGA Championship against Phil Mickelson, where he had every chance to win the thing and just didn't do it, didn't take advantage of it. So, although he's back to playing high caliber golf, championship caliber golf, like, can he be the closer anymore that he was when he won those 4 majors in 2 years? That's an open question.
The other thing, because I know you're a Tiger guy.
Mm-hmm.
You like Tiger Woods.
Sure.
I'm not a golf guy, period. I was never like, oh my God, I got to watch Tiger. It's kind of sad to watch. I mean, it sucks because it's not his fault. Like, it is not his fault that his body betrays him now. But older, I mean, I saw the highlights of him trying to limp around. He played 7 holes in the 3rd round?
Yeah, he would have had to play 29 on Sunday, and 29 holes, and that was just not
going to happen.
Not realistic.
Yeah.
Like, you could have predicted that WD as soon as they called things off on Saturday.
I mean, it sucks to watch. Like, this is a guy who legions of fans. I mean, people who never would have cared about golf cared about Tiger and watching golf because of Tiger.
Yeah, people my age, if they are into golf in any way, can probably chalk most of that up to Tiger Woods.
And I mean, think of how many guys on the tour now would tell you that, oh yeah, Tiger's my guy. I love Tiger Woods, whether I'm a fan or we become friends or whatever. I mean, it sucks to watch a dude, again, not entirely his fault, but it's kind of going out sad to watch him limping around and struggling to walk in the rain. I mean, it's tough. It's hard to watch.
Yeah, the Open Championship is generally contested on courses that tend to be a little flatter, a little less elevation, the ups and the downs. Those are going to be tournaments where if Tiger ever contends again, it's going to be one of those. Just like getting up and down the hill is a struggle for him, and it is sad. I mean, there is a lot about Tiger Woods's the back end of the conclusion of his competitive career where he doesn't have anybody to blame but himself, but it doesn't make it any less kind of sad and hard to watch when a guy who can still do things with a golf ball that those guys can't, but he can't walk 72 holes pain-free, and that's difficult. We had a couple of texts from the 785 texters on the text line. Wanted to shout out the amateur, the high amateur. That was Sam Bennett from Texas A&M, finishing a tie for 16, was -8, 4 shots off the lead going into the weekend, but shot a 76 and a 74. Still, you're an amateur and you finish in the top 20. That's pretty good. Had somebody ask about the prize money, whether an amateur can accept the prize money if they decide to turn pro after the event. No is the answer to that question. Sam Bennett could have turned pro this morning. He still would not have been eligible for that $270,000 that he would have won. He was booked, by the way. This is true. His Texas A&M team is playing in something called the Aggie Invitational starting today. He was scheduled to go off the tee at 8:30 this morning. That is an event with a bunch of teams from Texas and around Texas with no caddies. He could have gone from playing in one of the final groups at Augusta on Sunday to playing with no caddy in a college event today. He withdrew from that event. Which
shocking.
I don't blame him for it. But no, Sam Bennett, that was a really cool showing. He finished 2 under par. I would not want to play behind him for any amount of money. That dude plays slower than snail snot.
Slower than Cantlay?
Not that much slower. Oh my God. Agonizingly slow play from Cantlay. It was bad. And honestly, it affected Brooks Koepka.
I believe it.
It ticked him off. He was legit upset about it after the round. I don't blame him.
No, I don't blame him one bit either. Continuing on with our 580 Sports Talk headlines for this Monday afternoon. Let's go to the NFL. You asked Matt Verderame about this a little bit earlier, but according to multiple reports, including one predominantly from Adam Schefter of ESPN, at least 6 teams have inquired with the Arizona Cardinals about trading up for the 3rd overall pick in the upcoming NFL draft. The Cardinals, according to ESPN, are still mulling whether to move the pick or to make it. First 2 picks are expected to be quarterbacks, probably Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, probably. After that, I mean, Arizona's got a quarterback. The thing that's kind of been lost in this entire saga over the last year to 18 months with Arizona is that Kyler Murray is really good. Like, is he immature? Every single report from when he would go back to high school would indicate, yeah, he's probably pretty immature. Does he not study enough? Apparently so. And now he's hurt. But when he's on the field, he's really good. I mean, he's not Mahomes. I would put him solidly below Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, but he's higher than. I would take Kyler Murray over Dak Prescott.
Kyler Murray is like prime Russell Wilson with a PlayStation Plus account.
And who really likes football, but also really likes video games. Look, I get it. There's a lot of distractions out there. I often decide, do I want to go out and do something, or would I rather sit at home and play video games? It's often the latter. I get it. But you've got a big contract you have to live up to. So the Cardinals are in all likelihood not taking a quarterback. If they do, that would be hilariously disastrous. Very, very funny. I would trade out of that pick in all likelihood, unless they think either Jalen Carter, if they want to take him with the off-the-field issues he has dealt with. I'm not going to say he has off-the-field issues. He has dealt with some. I'm not going to get into that. Or if you think Will Anderson from Alabama is a transcendent kind of player, you stick with that pick, you take one of them. But you're not taking Miles Murphy with the 5th pick or Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech. Good players, really good players, guys who probably are going to be starters day one when they eventually get drafted middle of the first round. That's not like a transcendent player in all likelihood. I would probably trade out of that, try to get a couple more picks later on, because that team stinks. They are bad. They're going to be bad. They're not going to have Kyler for most of the year. I would think let's add as much young talent as possible, and we could probably get a haul for that 3rd overall pick.
Yeah, that would be the smart thing to do, but this is the Arizona Cardinals we're talking about. And sometimes the prudent course of action is not the one that the Arizona Cardinals choose to take. Would be fascinated, though, because, they hired a defense guy, right? Jonathan Gannon is their new head coach. So you got to believe that if there's some input coming from their new bench boss, it's going to be a lot on that defensive side of the football. And like you said, if you trade down a spot or 3 spots, I don't think Seattle's going to move from 5 to 3. I don't think Seattle's going to do the quarterback thing. But yeah, you move down to 6, you move down to 7, you're still going to have your pick of some pretty impressive edge rusher or interior rush talent. Even if it's just moving down 4 spots. So you move down more than that and really fatten up in the 2nd and 3rd round potentially.
Yeah.
Or get a future first.
The teams that Matt brought up earlier, I think, are very interesting in terms of who might go and get him. I have a hard time seeing the Raiders doing it because none of the guys in the draft ever played for the Patriots. So I have a hard time seeing Josh McDaniels being interested in them. But Jimmy Garoppolo is not the guy. That's pretty obvious. So if you think Anthony Richardson can be that guy, maybe. We joked about that 3 or 4 weeks ago now, that the Raiders are setting themselves up to draft Tim Tebow 2.0. Florida quarterback, super athlete, throwing mechanics, not great. Josh McDaniels at the helm of an AFC West team. They're setting themselves up to repeat history again. I don't know that they're going to do that. The Titans are interesting. The Malik Willis first-year experience, not the most encouraging. That did not go especially well for them. They've got to figure out their long-term option because it ain't going to be Ryan Tannehill and probably not Malik Willis, although there's still time. He's still young, etc. Otherwise, I'm curious who would go do it or who's going to say we need Anthony Richardson or we need Will Levis. Because I would imagine if you're trading up that high, you're taking a quarterback. I would also like to point this out for your consideration, though. Austin Gale, who used to work for PFF, now he works for The Ringer. He was on a Pro Football Focus podcast today, or maybe this was earlier this weekend. He said this phrase. He said that Will Levis's floor is being a part of Dude Perfect, which is probably the most insulting thing I've ever heard about an NFL draft prospect.
That's me.
I think his floor is Dude Perfect.
Wow. Oh, man.
That's really mean.
If that's not a reference you folks listening at home get, ask your kids. They know who that is.
Yeah, your kids know who Dude Perfect is. They're the guys who do
the trick shot guys.
Yeah, trick shots and yell, "Oh!" at everything.
They had a alternate Thursday Night Football broadcast, I think.
Yeah.
That was them? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really know what they did because I sure as hell didn't turn it on. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm like 28. I'm like, oh yeah, tell your kids about that. that is a trend that came just after me when I was in that target age group, and I never went back to go check that one out. But yeah, that's fascinating, and I would not be surprised. I've seen, and this is partially just draft talk, I have seen a few more people say, I think Will Anderson's good, but I don't know if he's like great like we've made him out to be the last couple of years recently. Maybe that's just draft talk. Maybe that's the Cardinals trying to talk themselves into trading out of that pick. I don't know, but fascinating nonetheless.
Next headline for me, the NBA regular season came to an end yesterday, which means the postseason field is set, and for a second consecutive year, that includes the play-in tournament. If you don't understand how that works, a quick primer. The top 6 teams in each conference are locked into their playoff seeding. The bottom 4, or the next 4, 7 through 10, are put into a tournament. The 7 seed plays the 8 seed, with the winner of that game being the 7 seed and playing the number 2 seed in the first round. The loser of that game still gets a chance to get in through the back door as the 9 and 10 seeds play each other. The winner of that game plays the loser of the 7-8 game, and the winner of that game is the 8th seed and plays the number 1 seed. One of the teams who is involved in this year's play-in tournament is the number 8 seed in the Western Conference, the Minnesota Timberwolves. They will play the number 7 seed Los Angeles Lakers tomorrow night. They will do so without their starting center and their best perimeter defenders because the Timberwolves lost their composure and were doing some fighting on the sidelines in their regular season finale. First, Rudy Gobert swung on a teammate. The starting center, who the Timberwolves gave up 4 first-round picks and a couple of actual NBA players to acquire this offseason and has had a rough first year in Minnesota, threw a punch at a teammate, Kyle Anderson, on the sideline during a timeout. Gobert was immediately escorted back to the locker room, did not return to the game, and the Timberwolves have suspended him for that play-in game for conduct detrimental to the team. He will not travel with the team to Los Angeles. The other fight that the Timberwolves got into, Jaden McDaniels versus a wall. Unsurprisingly, the wall won. McDaniels punched a wall in anger going up the tunnel. At one point during the game, broke his hand. He will probably miss the entirety of the postseason should Minnesota make any kind of a run that could be reasonably expected of them.
Kyle Farnsworth, your thoughts?
McDaniels was averaging 12 points a game, shooting 59%, one of their best defenders, punched the wall after he picked up his second foul in the first quarter. Broke his hand.
Real good team you have up there, Minnesota.
Yeah, lots of great chemistry going on with them. So the play-in in the Western Conference is 7th seed Los Angeles, 8th seed Minnesota. Winner of that one advances to play the number 2 seed, which is Memphis. The loser will play either New Orleans or Oklahoma City on Friday. Whoever wins that game, the winner of that Friday game will play Denver, the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. Over in the Eastern Conference, hey, your beloved Bulls are still alive. Beloved is not the right word to describe your relationship with the Bulls.
I hate them. I hate that I love them.
The Bulls,
I kind of hate them.
The Bulls are the 10 seed. They play number 9 Toronto Wednesday night. The 7 seed Miami plays the 8 seed Atlanta. The winner of that game will play Boston in the first round. The loser of that game will play either Toronto or Chicago, with the winner of that game advancing to play number 1 seed Milwaukee.
The play-in tournament, I at first thought this is stupid. Then I started to slightly go the other way and thought, all right, maybe I can see it. I have now rebounded further than I was originally, and I think it's very stupid. I have come to a point where I think the more gimmicks you have to add to convince people to care about your league, the worse your product is.
And the intended consequence, the intended positive of this is that it would convince teams to stay in the playoff race longer and not tank. And teams are not buying that. The Dallas Mavericks, who made an all-in trade for Kyrie Irving and then proceeded to absolutely piddle their shorts for the final month of the regular season, decided with 2 games left, yeah, we're good off this. We're not going to take a shot at being the 10 seed. We're not even going to try. We're going to tank. We're going to see if we can't get super lucky in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes.
See, I had a conversation with a buddy of mine who's a huge NBA guy, huge Bulls fan. And I was saying that it was embarrassing, and I was being hyperbolic, but I said everyone who bought a ticket to Slovenian night at the Mavericks-Bulls game should sue the league and should sue Mark Cuban. Like, I would be so PO'd. And he was saying, oh, yeah, well, why do we want to watch more Mavericks basketball? They have been miserable for a month. Their vibes have been awful since they traded for Kyrie. I agree with all that. I'm not clamoring to watch more of the miserable Dallas Mavericks. I'm not. But and I hate to be the old guy here, but like, it's the integrity of the game. It is the fact that this team, this very popular team that won a championship not all that long ago and has one of the biggest worldwide superstar athletes as its centerpiece, who now, by the way, is like, hey, can we improve or I'm going to ask for a trade? That they just said, we're not going to, we don't care. We're not even going to play for it anymore. We have no pride in this. We do not care. We want our season to be over. Let's hope that our 2% chance of getting the number 1 pick pans out. Oh, well. Like if you're Adam Silver, and I know they're going to do some sham investigation into it, but you've got to think, like, this is bad, right? Like, this is not how it should be, that our super well-funded, very popular teams with superstar players just saying, nah, we're good. We're good with the season. We'll stop.
Our chances of landing Victor Wembanyama are better than our chances of winning an NBA championship. And like on some level, that calculation is probably valid, but that's not a real good calculation you want your teams kind of in the fringe to be making. The next solution is you shorten the lottery. You don't give team number 13, team number 12 any ping pong balls. Like the lottery becomes the 5 worst teams or the 3 worst teams.
I don't know.
If you're gonna race to the bottom, do it at a full sprint.
Yeah.
Don't linger for 5 months like the Trailblazers, and then with a month left in the season, you're 2 games out of the 6th seed, and they're like, yeah, we're good off this. Damian Lillard, your calf is sore. You're not playing anymore.
It just sucks. Like, why am I supposed to be interested in a league that is filled with teams that are telling me do not care? Like, if you're a Portland fan, the only reason to go to games for the majority of the last decade has been to see Damian Lillard.
Yeah.
Because aside from a few really good years when he and CJ McCollum were lighting it up, and who's the big Nurkic when he was healthy, they were pretty good.
Yeah, they made a Western Conference Finals in 2019.
The only reason to watch is to go see if Dame can put up 60. That is the only reason to go watch them. And they're just saying, nah, we're good. Like, I would be furious. I'm mad at my own team because they're just clueless. But at least I would rather have that than we've got 2 superstars and we literally do not care about playing basketball. Then why am I supposed to care about watching or paying for this?
I like the sport of basketball very much. I hope that comes through when I talk about basketball, when I talk about college basketball, when I talk about the NBA. I like basketball a lot. I like to watch basketball. I like to follow basketball. Basketball is interesting to me. There are so many great with a capital G basketball players in the NBA that should be must watch every night. Hey, Giannis is playing. Hey, Joel Embiid is playing. Hey, Jaylen Brown is playing with Jason Tatum in Boston. Hey, Nikola Jokic is playing for the Nuggets. Like, you should be able to set your watch to like wanting to watch star players play this sport at the highest level that anybody's playing it. There's not a worse major professional sports product than the NBA. I'm
not even close.
Firmly convinced.
Not even close.
It's a mess. It's a mess. And I like it, but it's a mess.
Yeah. They're telling you not to care. So, okay, I won't then. That'll do it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We're going to talk a little basketball coming up in our next segment. One headline, a former Kansas Jayhawk has a new home. I've got a question for you about the guys who transferred out of KU, and so far the one player transferring out of K-State. We'll get to that next on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk. One other headline to get to usher us into this next segment. A former Kansas Jayhawk has his new home. Bobby Pettiford transferring much closer to home. He's from North Carolina, from Durham, I believe. And he's going to East Carolina in Greenville, North Carolina. I think that's a really good fit for him. I thought he could have a role at a bigger program. I really thought, Georgetown, there were some rumors there because Ed Cooley really wanted Pettiford when he was at Providence. Really wanted him, and he obviously ended up at KU. Thought maybe he'd end up there now. Well, Cooley has added a ton of dudes to that Georgetown program already. Probably filled up spots. Didn't want to play behind another really good player in Jaden Epps, a transfer from Illinois. So Pettiford's going to go to East Carolina. That's a spot in a conference that, and I don't mean to, rain on his parade. The American's not going to be all that great going forward. I mean, that's two-bid league probably. So there's going to be opportunities to shine. There's going to be moments where he's going to have a chance to really showcase himself. He's going to get to run the show, and he's going to be close to home. I'm happy for him. I like Bobby Pettiford a lot as a guy. I like him as a player. He was hurt all the time, just didn't work out on the same timeline as DeJuan Harris. I think that's a great fit for him, and I'm happy for him.
A friend of mine, Josh Graham, who does sports talk radio in what they call the Triad, the Winston-Salem area in North Carolina. He is an East Carolina graduate, and his reaction to the news on Twitter earlier today suggested that he believes that Bobby Pettiford might be the biggest deal transfer to end up at East Carolina to play basketball ever. And wow. I mean, that says a lot about the East Carolina program, which frankly hasn't been much of a basketball program historically, but this is a needle mover. This is a big deal for East Carolina. And so it creates a pretty cool moment for Bobby Pettiford to come in and be the guy and maybe try and establish some basketball history and tradition at a program that hasn't had a whole lot of that.
No, that's very, very cool for him. And I'm sure he's excited about it. And ECU should be very excited about it. My question for you, of the guys who we know are leaving or have already left. So you're looking at KU, it's Pettiford, Yesufu, Clements, Cam Martin, who already has a home. And
Boise
then
State.
Who am I missing now? Who's the other one that hasn't? And it's not Kyle Cuff. Am I missing someone else?
Rice?
MJ Rice. Thank you. MJ Rice. And then from K-State, it's Ish Massoud. Without worrying too much about positional need, which one of those players would you want the most if if you're a team that, hey, we lost 8 dudes to the portal or graduation, we've got to build up a roster, we'll take any talent we can get. Which of those guys would intrigue you the most?
Rice, probably the highest end talent and the most eligibility. And that would make him, I think, the most appealing to a coach. I don't know was there ever a thought that MJ would be a one and done?
So I don't know that there was ever necessarily thought he'd be a one and done, but his second choice to KU was going to the G League.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know exactly how that would have worked out, but his plan was never to be in college all that long. Okay. I know that for sure.
So you might only get him for 1 year, but the higher, like there's a higher ceiling of performance there than I think you get from any of these other guys. Like Cam Martin, you're getting for a year, but like we don't know. Maybe his ceiling was great player in the MIAA.
Yeah.
And for Zach Clements, Clements might be the guy you have for the longest of this group, because what's he got, 3 years?
No, he's only got 2. He was the
so him and
post-COVID.
So him and Pettiford only have 2. In theory, I really like the player Zach Clements because he's tall enough to help you on the interior, and he can stretch it out and shoot some threes. But in practice, it never really clicked for him. Though again, if I'm the head coach of mid-major U and I need some bodies, or if I'm at a middle tier or lower tier Power 5 team and I need some bodies, then that would be an interesting piece for me. With Ish, you only get him for a year, but I mean, he's tested. He's a tough kid. He's going to give you shooting, which is you can never have too much of that. But you have to wonder why there wasn't more urgency to keep him around. Like obviously he's leaving Kansas State because he expects a certain role. And in this hypothetical, I don't know that I'm going to be able to give Ish Massoud 30 minutes.
By the way, from Ryan Gilbert at Go PowerCat, who I've mentioned his reporting a few times over the last couple of weeks. He's their basketball insider. He said this was known with Ish, that maybe wasn't known to people outside the program, but it was known as early as the start of conference play. He was going to look for something else, which, again, I get. If K-State was kind of, mild to say the least on bringing him back. You might not have that role. I could understand why, hey, look, I'm going to play up the string. I'm going to give it my all, but this is going to be it for me. If you were a low major, like you're looking out east, if you're like one of those NEC programs, like Fairleigh Dickinson, the remaining St. Francis, New Haven, which is moving up. And I'm not trying to say Ish can't play at a better level, but if you're really looking for, I want to play 30 minutes a game because it's probably my last year of playing high-level basketball. If I was one of those programs, I'd say, yeah, bring me Ish Masood because we know he can play at a higher level. He's going to shoot, and he's just going to be bigger than everyone else. I would probably say it's worth it for a year.
Did he play 30 minutes in the A10?
Oh, man. Well, A10 was bad this year.
Yeah,
it's been such a good league, but it was bad this year.
The A10 kind of trending downwards a little bit. He played 30 minutes a game of the A10? Because I don't think he played 30 in the Big East.
No.
Like I would say like St. John's, Seton Hall, that's close to home for him. But I don't think he's playing 30 minutes a night for Rick Pitino. No way is he playing 30 minutes a night for Richard Pitino.
No, absolutely not. No, there's no chance at all. Man, if you just Google A10, you get the Fairchild Thunderbird A10 plane. That is not what I want. I want the A10 conference. And in terms of teams who are out there, I think, could he play at like LaSalle?
Yeah.
Or Rhode Island? Man, Rhode Island sucked this year too. He could probably play at that level.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's playing for Dayton, which is, kind of the cream, or VCU, the best teams in that league, but he's someone in that league. UMass needs players. I know that. He could probably go there. So I think situationally, I could understand why Ish would be very intriguing. Of the KU guys, I kind of almost lean Pettiford after, like Rice, yes, because he was a 5-star recruit for a reason. He was considering the G League for a reason.
Yeah, I'm doing Pettiford short shrift here because he has a home, unlike the rest of these guys. But I'm circling back around to him as like a floor leader, somebody who can make things happen on both ends. Like I worry about the health, and I worry about the fact that I don't think he can shoot.
I think the upside for him is that Bill Self, before Bobby Pettiford had ever played a college basketball game, compared him to Frank Mason.
And you can see it.
Yeah. Like the
difference
is there.
The difference was Frank Mason made 40% of his threes.
Yes. And also the guy who was playing in front of Frank Mason got kicked off the team halfway through Frank's freshman year.
What up, Nadir Tharp?
What's up, Nadir?
What are he's doing these days?
No, I think if Clemens could actually play, it's Zach Clemens. And I don't think it's close because a dude who's 6'8" and can shoot and guard 2 through 5, hell yeah. But every time he touches the ball, I freak out. Like it's the actual play, not very good.
Maybe he just needs to be in a spot where he can regain some confidence. I think he might be a player that it's just a matter of being confident and not feeling like one mistake is going to get me buried. I won't play again for 3 weeks because unfortunately, this is the reality of it for even some of the best prospects. You get to a big time program and you're fighting for playing time and you get left behind. Sometimes you get left in the dust. He got left in the dust at KU.
Yeah. I'm going to give you a team. This is not a report. This is just a guess. Team that's going to need some new guys and going to need to rebuild a little bit because they lost their head coach in his home state of Texas, North Texas. For Zach Clemens. Been a solid program, new coach. A bunch of dudes are leaving. I think that might make a little sense for him.
Do you want some other transfer portal news?
Yes, please.
Texas guard Arterio Morris is in the portal, one of only 3 guys that was scheduled to return with any sort of playing experience from last year for Rodney Terry. Arterio Morris was a big deal coming out of high school. 5-star recruit, McDonald's All-American. He is in the portal. As far as other players who are committing or deciding, there is one player who is scheduled a meeting with Kansas and also a meeting with Kentucky. That's Harrison Ingram, the small forward out of Stanford.
So we're going to talk to Michael Swain a little bit about him and KU in general coming up tomorrow. Ingram was a name that popped up early for KU. Like, hey, if KU wants him, they are going to get him. Then they cooled off significantly, and now this report today that Bill Self talked to him, maybe they're back in on it. I don't know.
And one piece of K-State transfer portal interest, they lost out on Tremont Mark over the weekend. Tremont Mark out of Houston, he was down to K-State and Arkansas, ended up choosing Arkansas. So he's going to go play for Eric Musselman. But K-State is in the Final Four for Aaron Estrada, 6'3" point guard out of Hofstra, who has won the Colonials Player of the Year each of the last 2 seasons. He was a 20-point-a-game guard last year. He's down to K-State, Alabama, Cincinnati, and Florida State. And from everything I've heard, this is one Jerome Tang really wants.
Yes, that seems to be the scuttlebutt. And I can understand it.
And he'd have 1 year of eligibility left. But this would be...
Jerome Tang special there.
Yeah, this would be a pretty big deal get if Jerome Tang could make it happen.
I did not know this until right now. I don't know if... Do you know about what's going on with Arteria Morris off the court?
I do not.
Okay. This is news to me right now.
Yeah, like it only got reported that he's entering the transfer portal within like the last half hour.
He is facing a trial for misdemeanor domestic assault. Of his girlfriend last June. His court date was postponed in the midst of the NCAA tournament. I'm going to pass.
Could have something to do with it.
I would imagine so. I think that is very likely. We've got to get to a quick timeout. We'll preview Royals Rangers next on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk, finishing up the show on this Monday afternoon. By the way, one other sporting event or adjacent tonight, the WNBA draft is tonight.
That's right. And there's a chance 2 former Kansas Prep stars could hear their names called tonight in the WNBA draft. There's a mock draft on ESPN.com. 36 picks tonight in the draft, 3 rounds, 12 teams. Both former McPherson star Taylor Robertson, who has the NCAA 3-point record from her time at the University of Oklahoma, and former Manhattan standout Chrissy Carr, who started, I believe, at K-State and then transferred to Arkansas. Both projected to be drafted tonight, potentially.
Very cool. Real quick, and this is a discussion for another day. It is incredibly dumb that the commissioner of the WNBA said, we're not in any rush to expand the league. They have 36 draft picks. There's only 144 roster spots in the entire league.
Yeah, that's
time. Insane.
Like, and with the TV ratings doing what they're doing for the women's Final Four over the last couple of years, yeah, it's time to expand. It's time to get to 16 teams, and I will beat the drum and stand on the table for an expansion team in Kansas City.
I mean, I would say Topeka, but fine. Kansas City.
Sure, yeah. Topeka, yeah. Bring them to the Stormont Vale Event Center.
Hell yeah. It'd sell it out. It certainly would. On a serious note, Royals versus Rangers coming up tonight. Not the WNBA isn't serious. My joke wasn't serious, to be clear. The Royals lineup for tonight. Witt leads off. Oliveras, Pasquantino, your top three. Perez, Duffy, Lopez in the middle of the order. Dozier at first, Eaton in right. Jackie Bradley Jr. in center. Your bottom third, Zach Greinke on the bump.
No MJ Melendez, first thing that stands out.
Yep.
They are going up against a left-handed pitcher tonight, Andrew Heaney, who can be kind of tough on lefties with his arm angle. So given at least one lefty the night off, I don't know why Jackie Bradley Jr. is playing. I know he's a plus defender. He is 2 for 17 at the plate.
You think he makes it the full year?
No.
I don't know.
I never did in the first place. He felt like unless he really hit that he was going to be the DFA when Drew Waters was ready to come back.
Yep, I would not be surprised at all by that. I will always love JBJ, two-time College World Series champion, the University of South Carolina.
Had a nice career. He doesn't hit anymore.
I mean,
it is fun to watch him play center field, though. Like, I love watching plus defensive center fielders play center field at Kauffman Stadium. It is one of baseball's simplest and most joyous pleasures is to watch a plus defender handle his business like Lorenzo Cain for so many years, and JBJ can still go get it. And so I understand why he's getting a chance, but
you should limit his plate appearance. Like, if he's only going to play 7th inning and later because he's a defensive replacement, you can live with it.
If the choice is him or Eddie Olivares on a daily basis, it should be Olivares 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, every single day. That shouldn't even be a question. And Fulton was mad it wasn't Isbell going tonight.
Of course.
Left-hander. Well, yeah. Let's take a quick timeout. We'll finish things up on 580 Sports Talk after this with the final word. Coming up tomorrow on 580 Sports Talk, Michael Swain is going to join us for Jayhawk Weekly. We'll be talking portal, spring game, and so much more. We'll also take a look at, as our NFL draft preparation continues, where does Dane Brugler of The Athletic, who is the best of the best when it comes to breaking down the draft and draft prospects, where does he have KU and K-State draft prospects projected, and where do we think some of those guys will go? The Lonnie Phelpses, the Earl Bostics, the Deuce Vaughns, Felix Anudike-Uzama. We'll talk about the local draft prospects coming up tomorrow. All that from 3 to 6 tomorrow on 580 Sports Talk. But first, Dan, today's final word.
Only 10 games into the Major League Baseball season, and it's evident that the Kansas City Royals aren't going to be super good. I mean, I'm sorry if you were holding out hope that they might be, but it's pretty clear they don't quite have enough talent. But there are enough good signs in development of hitters and pitchers that suggest 10 games in that things are on a positive track. I know it's early. I know things could get off of that track, but just watch guys like Chris Bubich and Vinny Pasquantino, and you can see that the future is starting to look brighter one day at a time.
Final word for me today, the Kansas City Chiefs, whatever they're going to do in their early part of the draft, it is very clear what they need. Could use another pass catcher at either receiver or tight end. You need some edge help. You need some help on the offensive line, just figuring out the long-term plan, at least at your right tackle spot. Whatever you want to do in the first round, you can go for any of those positions. That's fine with me, but you got to have a plan. If it's, well, we'll take this player and we'll figure it out later. No, this is not the time to just say, well, whatever. You want to have a plan because you want to make sure you're building this roster, not just for now, but for the future as well, so you can keep this could-be dynasty rolling for as long as you possibly can. We will be back tomorrow from 3 until 6. We're talking KU, draft picks, and so much more. We've got some 580 Sports Talk overtime coming up here at the top of the hour as well. Go check out the podcast on our website, 580WIBW.com, or you can go back and watch the live stream on YouTube, Sports on 580 WIBW. But until tomorrow, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Rosinski. We'll join you tomorrow at 3 on 580 Sports Talk.